It's time for the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel Podcast.
We've got lots and lots of things to talk about and to do today. Covering the territories from the 1940s to the 1990s.
It's the best thing going today.
Interviewing wrestlers, referees, authors, and other media personalities that have made the sport of professional wrestling great.
The cream, yeah. The cream of the crop.
And now, here's your host, Tony Richards.
Well, hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel History Show. I'm your host, Tony Richards, coming to you live from the Richards Ranch in western Kentucky, right here in the western tip of the Bluegrass State, bordered by the Ohio River and the state of Illinois. Closest town nearby is Paducah, Kentucky. The little town I live in, it's not really even a town. It's more like a village where I grew up here, called Lola, Kentucky. There's a sign on one end, and you drive like 45 seconds, and you pass the sign on the other end. There's not a whole lot here besides the other folks who live here, and my mom and me and our little ranch here in western Kentucky, where this show emanates from every single week. We drop the show Wednesday mornings, 5 a.m. Central Time, 6 a.m. Eastern, and today on the program. And also, I should mention, this show is about territory wrestling history, roughly from the periods of 1925 to 1995. Every now and then, we venture outside of that to talk about some current subject or something going on in the world of wrestling, but 98.9% of the time, we're talking about territory wrestling history, and today is no exception. Today, we're going to be talking a lot about the Cauliflower Alley Club, and it's only appropriate we'd be talking about Cauliflower Alley because we're also going to be talking about my friend George Goulas. Now, many of you may have seen some of the social media posts that I've put out and also the GoFundMe campaign that we're running for George, and we're running out of time. So today is Wednesday, and we really, really would like to have this money raised for George by the end of this week, if possible. And so many people have opened up their hearts and opened up their wallets and have given money to George. I'm not going to tell you the whole story. I think there's a lot of different stories already circulating out there. I know some people have talked to George, and George is under a whole lot of pressure right now. So he sometimes he just tends to say things without thinking about it, and then people run with it. So I think you trust me enough. I think my audience and my community trusts me enough to tell you the basic facts that you need to know about it. And essentially, George is like a lot of wrestlers from the territory era. He didn't really save his money. He didn't manage his money that great. He's been a umpire for softball for many, many years. He's also been a basketball referee for high school basketball for many, many years, and a really good one. I've never seen him referee a game. I plan on doing that this fall. But George got basically to the point where he was immobile. And his hip, like a lot of pro wrestlers and a lot of, like me, like a lot of non-wrestlers, when you get older, just some of your body parts need repair. And George had a really, really bad hip that needed repair. It needed surgery for him to be able to try to go ahead in his 70s to continue to make a living for his household. And if he can't walk, let alone run up and down the court or get around on a softball field, then he's not going to be able to make a living. Well, of course, he also doesn't have any health insurance. And the surgery was something, it wasn't elective, it was mandatory. I mean, he was in a position where he really needed to work. And so while the money was diverted from regular living expenses to the surgery, which was very expensive, they ran out of money and had some things back up on them, namely their apartment rent where they were living, didn't get paid for a few months. And essentially they got, $9,000-$10,000 in the hole. And with no way to get out, George still recovering from his hip surgery. He's doing so much better, walking so much better, getting around so much better. but it's not the time of year to work yet for him, and he can't work yet. He's still doing rehab on his hip. And so he got an eviction notice, and also doesn't have anywhere to go. And, you know, when these kinds of things happen, when I see these things happen to people, I always think this could be me. And I know people can be high minded sometimes and say, well, I would never get myself in that position. Well, God forbid. I hope you never would. And I hope we would all do whatever kind of fiscal responsibility we need to do to be able to keep ourselves out of that position. But the truth is, you and I are typically one or two emergencies away from being in the same kind of situation or position. And also, I don't mind telling you, I got a soft spot in my heart for George Gulas. I don't know. He's been talked about for so many years. He's been poked fun at. He's been made fun of. All of this stuff has happened. I'm not condemning the people who've done that or talked about that or whatever. You got a right to do whatever you want to do within reason. But if you go back and you watch my interview with George on the Briscoe and Bradshaw show, and you watch that hour and a half that he spent talking to Jerry, John, and I, you get a sense for who George really is as a human being and as a person. And he's really just a simple, honest guy, and just a nice fella. And yeah, he talks a little bit and runs off, you know, a little bit, strings off in his sentences quite a bit and all that. But who cares, right? I mean, and he needs help. That's all I know. And so he's my friend. He reached out to me and asked me for help. I said, well, George, I can put it on my social media channels for you. Michael St. John has done a great job of organizing the GoFundMe page for George. Other people like Scott Teal, Evan Ginsberg, and I hate to name names because I'll leave somebody out, but people have rallied and are trying to help George. And so I appreciate anything you can do. If you can pray for him, thank you. If you can say good words about him, thank you. If you can restrain from telling, at this point, tired old jokes about him that we've all heard so many times, I just don't even want to hear it anymore. And it's not funny anymore. If you do all those things, it would be appreciated. If you just keep a good word in mind for George and his wife, Julie. If you can spare a donation, that would be great. I thank you in advance and let you know you're much appreciated for anything you can do. I know people have done up as much as $1,000. I know people have done up as much as $500. I know people who have done $5, and it all adds up. And I just want you to know I appreciate it. Just search online, George Gulas, GoFundMe, and we're telling just the basic facts. I'm giving you the basic facts that George's money had to go toward his surgery. And so his wife was taking care of their finances. She was under a lot of pressure. She was worried about George, worried that he might not be able to walk again, which then would really put them in a bad position if he can't work. But there again, George is just like a lot of wrestlers who didn't have a lot to show financially after their career was over, and no medical insurance or anything like that. And so, he had to have the surgery. And now he needs to be able to stay in his place long enough. This money that we raise here will be able to get the eviction suspended, and he'll be able to stay there for, maybe another 10 or 15 days until he can find a little bit more affordable place to live. That's the story on it. Nothing more, nothing less. I appreciate anything you can do. I know there's messages flying around different groups and things like that. And I think anything else I'd be able to tell you about it would be confidential and would be breaching trust with George, but there's nothing really that big a deal beyond what I've just told you. You know, he had to have the surgery. There was only so much money at the end of the month. All that money went to his medical bills instead of going to pay the bills. So then the bills just kept accumulating, the rent kept accumulating, and he got really, really deep in a hole and needs help getting out. That's the story. So any help you can get on George Gulas GoFundMe, really, really appreciate it. Today on the show, we're going to be talking about, it just so happens, we're going to be talking about an organization that helps wrestlers, the Cauliflower Alley Club. And we got some fantastic guests lined up today. Paige Sutherland is going to be up first, and then the James Melby Award winner, Dan Murphy, is going to be here for a conversation with me. And then to cap the show off, you're not going to want to miss the Ron Hutchinson Trainer Award winner for 2026. The Hustler, Rip Rogers, is going to be here on the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel today, and we're going to be talking to Rip about his career, about my fandom of ICW, and going to a lot of the matches. And our conversation is going to, if you've ever heard Rip before, you know our conversation is going to be all over the road. We'll get to that in just a minute. Kurt Von Hess. Kurt Von Hess was a Canadian professional wrestler who was active primarily from the 1960s through the 1980s. So in a large portion of the territory era, he was known as a tough, heat-drawing ethnic heel. Of course, he was portraying a German heel antagonist, shaved head, jack boots, black gear, horsewhip prop, and of course, an exaggerated accent. He was actually a Canadian born in Hamilton, Ontario, and his initial work was done under the name Big Bill Terry, because that is his actual name, William Earl Bill Terry. He was especially successful in tag teams, and also he was, as there were a lot of German tag teams back then, the von Stroheims, the von Brauners, Otto von Heller, and many others. But his most notable partnership was with Carl von Schatz, who was real name John Anson. And they were the most hated heels in the Detroit big-time wrestling NWA territory in the early 70s. He also did some work for the NWF. He was the NWA North American Tag Team Champion in Los Angeles while he was touring New Japan. He worked in Stampede Wrestling, Gulf Coast Championship Wrestling. He held the prestigious NWA Gulf Coast Heavyweight Championship twice in 1977. He won the, excuse me, I'm still getting over this respiratory issue that I got in Waterloo. He was AWA Southern Tag Team Champions 4 times, once with Randy Colley and then with other various partners. He won the IWA World Tag Team titles, both in Japan and in North America, and much, much more. He worked across North America, Montreal, Gulf Coast, Georgia, Mid-South, Memphis, the Tennessee territory, and much, much more. He was married to Catherine Sophia Terry. She died in 2017. They had 4 children, and his oldest daughter is Paige Von Hess Sutherland. She often uses the Von Hess, of course, in wrestling circles, and she's a key figure in the wrestling community, and especially now because she's just been named the benevolent director of the Cauliflower Alley Club, taking the place of longtime benevolent director Darla Staggs. And she grew up in the wrestling lifestyle, man. The family moved around, lived like carnivals, nomads. And sometimes I have heard her say in other interviews, they moved around 17 times in 10 years. And so they really had to learn how to work as a family. She was not smartened up as to kayfabe as a child, and has described her dad as her best friend and larger-than-life figure who was feared as Kurt Von Hess, but kind and professional as her father, Bill Terry. So with the Cauliflower Alley Club now, an organization who's focused on camaraderie, recognition, friendship, and support for current and former wrestlers and related personnel, she is now the benevolent director on the advisory board And in her capacity, she's going to help oversee the Cauliflower Alley Club's efforts to assist wrestling community members that face financial, medical, or personal hardships. I'm extremely, extremely grateful that she has taken the time to be here and visit with me today. And I would like to welcome to the show and to the Richards Ranch, Paige Sutherland. Let's go to that interview right now. We're visiting today with Paige. Is it okay if I call you Paige von Sunderland?
It's actually Paige von Hess Sutherland.
Yeah, you got to put the Hess in there too. So,
The Hess has to be in there for sure.
Paige von Hess Sutherland, Sunderland,
Sutherland.
Sutherland. Okay, I grew up with a kid. He was my best friend as I was growing up, and we were playing baseball, and his name was Sunderland.
Okay.
Roy.
That's more Nordic, I think.
Good old Southern boy. So his name was Roy Don Sunderland. And because you got to have the Billy Bobs and the Roy Dons and the, all that in the South. But anyway, it's Sutherland, Paige Sutherland. Yes. And of course, her father, famous wrestler. We'll talk about him and his exploits and accomplishments in just a second. Kurt von Hess. And Paige just, so thank you for agreeing to spend some time with me today.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. It's my favorite subject, wrestling, my dad. Those are two things that I cherish.
That's great. So let's just let me just run down a little bit, and you steer me if I get off track here. But he was a Canadian, and he was born in Hamilton, Ontario, and he trained under a fellow named Benny Lima. And he debuted in 1966 as Big Bill Terry in Maple Leaf Wrestling and other territories. In 1970, he took on the persona of the notorious Kurt von Hess, shaved his head, started wearing the German foreign heel gimmick and getup, and was probably one of the last to use the Nazi kind of persona in wrestling by 1970. And he carried a horsewhip and used the German accent in his interviews and such. But he was, by all accounts, and what I know about him, and I've done quite a bit of research, he was very well trained. He was very versatile in the ring, wrestled across North America, held the NWA World Tag Team Championship 5 times with partner Carl von Schatz. And he also worked for Stu Hart quite a bit in Stampede Wrestling, held the North American Heavyweight title. He also worked in the NWF, held the World Tag Team Championship there. And very close to my heart, he held the AWA Southern Tag Team Championship 4 times. And he also did programs and teamed Ric Flair, Bret Hart, Randy Savage, Roddy Piper, and so many more that we really know. He retired in 1989. You wrestled up to 89? Is that right?
He sure did. Yeah.
Wow. And
I know.
Unfortunately, passed away from a heart attack March 13th, 1999, at only 56 years old. And wife Kathy passed away in 2017. And you've got 3 other siblings, right?
I do. I have 3 sisters. Yes.
What are their names, Paige?
I have a sister, Allison. She's 2 years younger than I'm 60, so she's 58, and she's here in Hamilton. And then I have 2 half sisters in Lynchburg, Virginia, Ashley Terry and Callie Terry, and they're 40 and 35.
Boy, time flies, doesn't it?
Doesn't it?
I have to sit and think of how old my brother is at times, and it's hard for me to believe, when I think, oh my gosh, he is that, and that makes me this. So
yes, yes.
So you and your sister Allison, you guys traveled with your dad for about 10 years, and you moved 17 times.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so the family could stay together when your dad changed territories. What are some
He
of your
was such a family man. Yeah.
what are
So
some of your memories about moving around like that?
you know what? I didn't know any different. So I started when I was 4 years old. We moved to Calgary, and prior to that, my dad had worked in Buffalo for the NWF, and he had 2 titles there with Don Lewin, the Executioner, and also with Eric the Red, who are his 2 partners. So on the promoter was Pedro Martinez.
Mhm.
He pushed him into Stu Hart's territory, and we packed up and moved, and that was our first move. And he became the champion within 2-3 months. I have memory of it, living in these places,
Yeah.
from there to Montreal to Windsor to Montreal. Like it was like mostly in Canada up till I was about 7. And then I moved down to High Point, North Carolina, where my dad joined the IWA,
Hmm.
which was ahead of its time with the TV they did, the wrestling. It was just a fantastic organization run by Ron Martinez, Pedro Martinez's son,
Yep.
and Johnny Powers.
Yeah,
So
we just did a show here a couple of weeks ago about 1976 in the Carolinas,
that's
and
right.
we were talking about the lawsuit against the Crockett's and all of that because they couldn't get into arenas and buildings and things of that nature. So, and
Yeah, there was quite a battle between the 2 promotions at that time.
yeah,
So my dad only did that summer. He did a little bit the previous year in 75, but not for long. But he was with Carl von Stroheim at the time, who was Carl von Bronner.
yeah,
And
yeah.
by the way, my dad has 6 titles with the NWA Detroit because he won one with Carl von Bronner off of Alpha and Sika, the Wild Samoans.
Now, see,
So,
I grew up with the Von Brauners. Yeah,
yeah.
I became a wrestling fan in 1973. And the Von Brauners were working at the very tail end of their time with Gulas Welch. And then they went over to work for Phil Golden, who had a promotion in Paducah, Kentucky, which is my hometown. And
Ah,
Saul Weingroff and the Von Brauners they were like the Road Warriors in that day. I mean, they were just big and tough. And as a kid of 9 or 10 years old, I just kept thinking, nobody can beat these guys. Like they're
oh.
just like a machine. And all the Von Brauners were always in very good physical condition and shape, and they just made such great heels. I bet those were great teams with your dad.
What, he really connected with, Carl, and Carl von Schatz was his longtime partner,
Hmm.
starting in Calgary. That was where it was created. Stu Hart actually helped John Anson, who was Carl von Schatz, become my dad's partner, and then they went to work for the Rougeaus in Montreal, and they were trying to find the next best German tag team. Not saying that the Von Brauners or the Von Steigers were, they were so relevant at the time, if not on top.
Yeah,
But my dad and Carl really, they were a bit bigger. They were also in very good physical shape, and they were mean.
yeah.
They were mean.
Well, back in those days, we have to keep reminding our younger fans that watch and listen that back in those days, the fans were limited to what they could see in their territory area,
Yes.
and there were a lot of foreign heels for every territory. You would have a Japanese team, or you would have a German team, and you would have them in almost every territory, but you never knew there were other ones out there because you never got to see the other territories. And
No, there wasn't nationwide television. There
right,
wasn't the internet, all of the things that we are lucky to have today to see things. Back then, it was word of mouth, wrestling cards advertised, TV spots, if they could, little shots, and
hmm,
the TV itself. That's how, and it just stayed in that area, whereas, now it's nationwide. So a lot of the tag teams could do that, and then they'd have expiry time where it's getting kind of old,
yeah.
and we would move to another territory.
I one thing I want to ask you. I did a show on Stampede Wrestling last year for 1975, and I had Larry Lane on, who worked there that year. And we always hear about the miles involved and the long trips that were in mid South in Louisiana and Oklahoma, and we hear about it in the Amarillo territory. We don't really hear about it that much in Stampede, but my goodness, was there a lot of miles in between towns in that territory. Canada is a big place.
We are very vast. Alberta is a very vast territory, and they were going into Saskatchewan as well. And the travel alone was brutal, especially because we had really brutal winters in Calgary. And um, those my dad and just I've talked to Carl about it, and I remember my dad talking about it and saying those were the nights where he just could not wait to get home, and
I
it just
bet.
took forever and really treacherous weather.
Yeah. What are your memories of that? Did you take any trips back then when you were living in Stampede and Calgary?
No, my dad was very cautious of us girls being the exposure we had to wrestling. It was very limited. I really didn't see my dad wrestle live for the first time till I was probably 7,
Mm.
and that was supervised. You know,
Well,
um,
I could see where he would be concerned being a heel, and
they
having you
there is
there.
a Yeah, there's a lot of dangerous, people who actually thought that's who he was as a person. It we weren't, with the kayfabe era, I didn't even know about it. I knew something was up, but it's something's not right when I'm in the grocery store with my dad, and my dad has on like a straw hat and he's trying to disguise himself to get some groceries, and he would take us girls with him everywhere just to get that quality time because he was on the road so much from our home base wherever we were.
Hmm.
And he just was so protective over us. So that first match I went to, with I say supervised, he'd have somebody watching, my mom and my sister and I in the audience, say at the New Orleans Superdome. Like, he was so like, and then he would be watching because he was on maybe the second or last match,
Sure.
and just making sure, and then we would have to get out before he was done.
And I just,
And
for all of you Louisiana people who are listening today, you people are crazy. I mean, you're
oh,
crazy over your wrestling, and
oh,
back
I can
then they
remember
were,
those fans.
yeah,
Yeah.
they
Yeah,
really were.
so they were really, really passionate about wrestling and their local hero.
Hmm.
And my dad's job was to come in and try to make it look like he's destroying their local hero
Of
and get
course.
them angry.
Yeah,
And with that,
he's the
there's
latest
backlash.
he's the latest dragon that the hero has to slay. And so,
Exactly. And he would come in hard. He would really come in hard and aggressive. But when you wrestled him, you can add I've talked to so many wrestlers over the years, and they all say the same thing. When they wrestled my dad, he was so gentle, but made it look so rough.
yeah. Well, that's the art.
It's an art.
Wrestling is a performance art, and
It is.
it's some people are very very good at it, and
Yeah, he was
uh,
exceptionally good at it and didn't get the push that I believe he deserved.
yeah,
It was wrong timing, there's a lot of things. If anything, the Sheik really gave him that big push for all those championships, and Pedro and Stu and Johnny Rougeau or Jacques Rougeau, like they all loved him,
I
and
I'm the historian that's on Briscoe and Bradshaw probably the most, and um,
yes, yes, I heard that from
yeah, and
Darla Staggs.
we did a whole series on the Welch family recently, and I had an opportunity to have George Goulas on, and one of the things I wanted to talk to him about was being the promoter's son, and he just talked about how you can imagine what it was like going to school where kids knew that his dad was the promoter and all that. Did that ever happen to you? Did you have that, or did kids have no idea who your dad was?
You know what? We get to the territory. I'd have to go to where I needed to go to school. Um, I would never say. who I was. And then all of a sudden, again, the grocery store or the bank or the gas station, we would be with him and they'd see me with him and then they'd put it all together. And then I got back to school and it would go two ways. One way would go where, oh, your dad's a bum and, he can't wrestle and this and that. And other people were enamored that I was his daughter and, asking me a lot of questions like, what's he like at home? And, and
Well, I was want to ask that. Did you ever see Bill Terry interact with people?
yes,
Like just being Bill Terry? I mean, what was that like?
he was Bill Terry at home always. So when he walked, I always say this, when he walked into the arena, he put Bill Terry aside and became Kurt Von Hess. That was his job. And when he walked out of the arena and got in his car, he was back to Bill Terry.
Now
And
that
Bill
I
Terry was,
believe with all my heart, the best can do that.
it's
They
an art right
yes,
there.
yeah,
How do you go from being this angry, nasty, vile person to my dad, Bill Terry, who was the most loving, kindest, quiet, didn't say a lot, but was just a gentle, loving father and husband. And he could separate those two. And a lot of people become their gimmick. He refused. Once he was out of there, he wanted that normalcy at home, where we'd sit and watch the Three Stooges and giggle. And, he probably got some of his angles from them. I don't know.
yeah. So there had to be some people who knew that your dad played this role and was this wrestler, and so when they met Bill Terry, what surprised them the most?
But he was so nice and so caring and so empathetic and not how he portrayed himself. Our neighbors say in our wherever we were living, you get to know your neighbors. It's a short period of time we were there, but say in Nashville, we would become friends with the neighbors next door, and then they go, I can't believe he's the same guy as in the ring. Like, what's that?
Yeah, yeah.
And people didn't understand that's something he was very talented at is separating those two characters and
You know that
you know
happens. That happens to everybody in entertainment. It doesn't matter if you're a newscaster or a radio personality or a movie actor or you're in a television series or you're a wrestler. When people meet the real person, they're usually surprised because they have so bought into the person they've seen perform. And
and on the other end, what happened was a few times I've had fans contact me over the years and tell me, oh my gosh, the first time I saw your dad was at a gas station. And that is a typical, I saw Kurt Von Hess at the gas station.
of
He was
course,
pumping his own gas.
of course,
And you'd have George Cannon in the passenger seat, who was his manager at the time. And my dad would go in and pay for the gas, and all these little kids are following him in, and he wouldn't do the normal gimmick that he had, and the growling and the
yeah.
yelling and the he just turn around and he wouldn't give autographs. That was a no.
No, heels didn't do
uh
that those days.
so he's really kayfabe and quiet and protected the business like nobody else.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't be as crass or mean as he was doing a promo or in the ring. If he saw the kids, he didn't want to scare them, but scare them enough that they're like, "Oh my God!" You give them something to think about. But he would sometimes look at a kid and you go, are you really a mean guy? And my dad would just wink.
Yeah.
He
Yeah, I
wouldn't say
love
anything.
that. I love that. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
A lot of times, if I'm going to have somebody on like this, and you and I spoke, I've had a couple of weeks to get ready to talk with you because we talked a couple of weeks ago,
Yeah.
and I went to find a couple of your interviews because I like to do that to make sure I don't ask something that maybe you've been asked a million times, but I do have one that I've heard you answer before, and that is you formed relationships, and I think every person I've ever known in the wrestling business that had families was like this. You formed relationship with the other families
Yes.
that were in the business, right? Who were some
Yeah.
of those people?
Um, Number one would be Alpha and Sika, the Wild Samoans. I met them when I moved to High Point, North Carolina for IWA, and they were there. And that's the first time I met them. And from that point on, we moved to four different territories together, lived in the same houses, same area. We stuck together because we didn't have, and the wives would connect. And my dad was very good friends with both Alpha and Sika. Um, that is wrestling because there weren't many families. It was frowned upon to bring your family to the territory. I know a lot of promoters didn't like that because it caused a lot of problems.
Mm.
My mom was a very staunch, she really didn't like, I hate to say this, she wasn't a fan of the wrestling at all.
Yeah.
So she was overprotective because she saw what it did to my dad, physically and sometimes mentally, it was tough.
Well,
So
it's not like a traditional life.
it was not. See, I didn't know any different.
Sure.
So, and my
But
sister is the same.
I could see where a spouse, either male or female, wouldn't be attracted to it because it's not your traditional kind of life. It's very unusual, and you have to make sacrifices that a lot of families don't have to make in order to make a living. And so
Absolutely.
I could see where your mom's coming from for sure.
She had a lot of resentment towards wrestling. The wrestling took my dad away from her and us, and that's how. But we needed the money, and that was what he was most talented at. He tried other jobs, and he just always went back to wrestling. It was
You
in
know,
his heart. He loved it from a kid.
do you know a story about how your mom and dad met?
Yes. So my mom and dad met in 1964 in Scotland. My mom was from Ayr, Scotland, which is the hometown of Robert Burns, the poet.
Yeah, nice.
And so my dad knew my mom's family because he dated my mom's older sister first.
Oh my goodness, that sounds like trouble.
Yes. So my Aunt Mary and my dad dated for a year. She was here in Hamilton working at a bank, and she was an airline stewardess as well. And they split, and my dad was Irish. His family directly from Ireland, so he would be sent. Back then, they used to send the teenage children, the young children, to go and get things from Ireland. And he decided after he split up with my mom's sister that he would go visit my grandmother, and my mom happened to be there, and that's my grandmother said take him out for a coffee or something and to be a good host, and they fell in love,
Oh
and
man,
they were married 1965 in the next year.
so neat.
And she was a beauty queen. She was a Miss Bonnie Lass of Air in 1964.
Your mother?
My mother,
My
yes, she was
goodness.
stunningly beautiful, yes.
Oh
So
wow.
I have these movie star parents, that I absolutely adored, and he brought her here, and they got married, and he'd already been training for wrestling by that point with Benny Lima, and actually Dewey Robertson is who got my dad into wrestling. So my dad
And
didn't
fans may
have
know him later as the missing link.
the missing link, yes.
Yeah.
And he's also a fellow Hamiltonian, God rest his soul, who became my dad and him had a lifelong friendship. And Dewey got my dad involved with Benny Lima, and then that's when it took off. And it's not something my mom expected coming here, So there's a resentment that started quite early, and they had marriage troubles. And
The thing that's in my mind right now is what happened to Aunt Mary.
oh, Aunt Mary went on to marry a doctor, and she lived in Boston, and she
Uh,
became a doctor herself.
oh
So
my
she,
goodness.
yeah, yeah,
What
yeah.
kind
But
of doctor?
she was a psychologist.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she just
But
recently
that
passed
would have
this
been an
past
interesting
October.
relationship if that would, psychologist married to a wrestler. That would have been,
Exactly, eh?
that would
Ring
have been,
psychology and a psychologist.
yeah, yeah, sure. So are there any like feuds or rivalries or matches that your dad had that stick out to you now that you look back on and you remember much about, or that your dad talked about much?
Whenever he would win a belt, it was a big deal. He wasn't one to go out with the boys after and have beer and things like that. He'd bring the belt home and bring a pizza home and just be happy about that. It's an
Mm,
accomplishment for him.
sure.
Um,
And it
Big
would have
battle,
been, and
probably.
in those days, it would have been difficult for heels to go out publicly.
Oh yeah, yeah. You can't go sit in a bar. You're gonna get challenged.
Right.
That, hey,
And you can't lose, because that hurts the business, right? So he was
and
probably
that's why
wise.
he's.
He was probably wise just to avoid the whole thing.
Oh, he loved a cold beer after the matches, but in the dressing room, and then he'd be on his way. And, he would come home and he was more of a homebody. He wasn't a partier or going after some of the women that used to come around the matches and,
Sure.
things like that. He didn't feed into that lifestyle that a lot of guys did, and he was quite proud of that. And that, I think that's why he was so successful. He was so driven to succeed. He did the best he could, and he really worked hard at it. But I would say the match that the rivalry he really well, he was the Gulf Coast champion in 1977 in Pensacola.
Yeah.
And he had a really so the champion was Mr. Wrestling, I think.
Probably.
Wow.
Did you get to know the Fields family?
No, well, Ricky Fields and
Uh-huh.
those. No, I know him later.
Oh, I
I
see.
met him
Okay.
later. See, during the time, it was hard for me to know these people because I was kept away.
It
But
was getting close to the time they were going to be selling the territory too in '77
yeah,
because they were going to sell it to Ron Fuller. But yeah, I was just curious. Just I didn't know
yeah.
how all that worked. Like how much contact did you have with the other families and that kind of stuff? I've heard other wrestlers say back in the earlier days where they all traveled like gypsies, like they all traveled in their cars and pulled behind trailers and found
We
camp
did, yeah.
and they found campgrounds where they all just knew each other and that kind of stuff.
And that's the thing. We would meet up with Anawa'i families and, we would camp together. We would be in cabins. We were in Washington State and and my dad was working for Gene Kiniski in British Columbia. That we just find like off-season cottages or cheap motels with kitchenettes. That's the way we led a very gypsy nomadic life. That that U-Haul, like every time I see a U-Haul, it brings me back because
Yeah.
I can remember I come home to the motel and there's a U-Haul in the back of my dad's car. And I'm like, I guess we're moving like that. And that was common amongst families. You can ask the Anawa'i children, and they all said the same thing, like, oh God, here we go. We're moving again, and it happened quite quick.
I
My dad
want
could get a phone call and then he would finish the angle and be in the next territory within a week.
That's amazing.
Yeah, like the
I'm certainly not going to be the first, but I am just pleased to congratulate you on your new role. You're
thank you so
you're
much.
you're going to be the benevolent director for the Cauliflower Alley Club, and you're going to be the successor of someone that I really hold dear, in Darla Staggs, who was
I love her.
on my show, well, a couple months ago, and then I just saw her in St. Louis a couple of weeks ago
Right.
at Herb's event,
Hmm.
and man, she is going to be stepping down, and you're going to be stepping up. So congratulations.
Thank you so much. You know what? This role that I've taken on as a benevolent director for Cauliflower Alley is a complete, absolute honor that they even considered me. I have so much experience in the wrestling business. I've, there's so many parts that I could go on for hours and hours and tell you stories about different territories and different men that were there, and come for dinner and things like that.
And
My mom would do that.
I'm going to take you up on that too, because I want to hear every one of them. So I'm going to corner you sometime at one of these
You
conventions, and
got it.
you just tell me every story you know. So
I certainly will. Yeah,
so
but
what?
there's so many wonderful stories, and I think that's what I can bring to the table is I know how a wrestler's mind operates. I know how my dad's fought and how they used to operate back then, and just the struggle and the hardship that a lot of these men and women went through that I witnessed, you know, people leaving the business because of something or, injuries and, losses and, financial burdens. I'm so happy to be able to take this position and be able to help um, people who really need the help. If they can't pay their rent and they've been in the hospital, or, there's many scenarios that could happen. And, I'm just so delighted. I've already helped a couple of gentlemen in the business get back on their feet a little bit, and I get to their story and then I can relate to that story and then I put it before the board and then the board takes a look at it, and it's just such a wonderful gift. It's such a great feeling to help people like that. When I saw all this as a child, and into my teens of guys just really struggling,
I was
my
sitting
dad included.
I was sitting having dinner at this St. Louis event, at Herb Simmons' event, with James Beard and JBL and I think Barry Darso, and we're just talking.
I know James and I know JBL for sure.
And
Yes.
we're just sitting there talking. And I said, you know what the second question every wrestler asks each other when they come up to one another? After the first question is, how you doing? I said, you know what the second question always is? Because I'm just watching, right? And I've seen probably 50 interactions that day between wrestlers. The second question always is, how's your body?
Oh yeah.
Which
Yeah.
relates directly to what you're talking about.
Yes, and there's I know from experience with my own father that his body was bruised and battered, and for a big guy, I don't know how he made it all those matches. There's close to 2,700 matches he did.
And it typically
That's a
doesn't get
lot.
and it typically doesn't get better with time, Paige. You know.
No, and the thing is with my dad is it wasn't so much physical injury. He had kidney failure and had to be on dialysis. 1990, his kidneys failed. He really took that hard
Now,
because
was that a direct result of wrestling or something else?
I think it was a direct. To be quite honest, directly from wrestling.
Your
There's a
back
certain
your back takes a lot of abuse. I mean, a lot of back drops and out of the ring and ring posts and
oh yeah.
those turnbuckles when you slam into them. I mean, it's like I've heard it described as like a car accident. Where
Yeah, and that's the thing. Your body's constantly traumatized. I mean, those were like plyboard. That's not like all
yeah,
cushiony,
plywood,
and
yeah.
he would help set up the ring so he could find his soft spot.
Well, and fans today may not understand, but back then they wrestled almost every night, except
Go to a
Sunday,
town,
usually, except
except
Sunday.
Sunday, sometimes twice on Sunday if it was a holiday or
And
whatever.
depending
But
on
yeah,
on the state, mostly in the South, they didn't wrestle on Sunday because of the laws, but
yes,
but in the northern areas and western part of the United States, they did. I know, like in Amarillo, they had two shows on Sunday.
yeah, yeah. Whereas in Atlanta, no, he was home on Sundays.
Well, I can just hear the empathy and compassion in your voice when you talk about this role and
Oh,
the purpose of it and the mission of it and the mission of the Cauliflower Alley Club altogether. I can just hear in your voice you are the right person for this.
Oh, thank you so much. And I am filling big shoes from Darla. She has gone on to be the treasurer, and we work together, and I love working with her. I have learned so much more about cauliflower. I've been involved with Cauliflower Alley Club for a few years, so I've really gotten to know all the members, the staff, the volunteers, and I just love the organization and what their mission is, and that is empathy.
Well, I was going to
Empathy for
ask you, like, what has surprised you the most about the Ring of Friendship, like, atmosphere?
it's just so giving and loving and empathetic, and they really take the time to talk to these guys. There can be unsavory characters in wrestling, as you know.
Yeah,
There can
sure.
be lovely people. It doesn't
That
matter, and
that's in any industry, though. I mean,
it
it's
isn't, and there's always going to be that. And it's such a non-judgmental giving of help, and for somebody struggling. And I am so delighted to actually be able to keep that going, and that's the purpose of the Cauliflower Alley Club, is to make sure that wrestlers who don't have benefits, who don't have insurance, who don't have a retirement plan. You don't get retirement. You don't get your benefits from retiring. You get put out
you
to pasture.
if you don't put it aside, it's not there. So,
You have to be smart with your money when you're working, and a lot of people weren't.
sure.
They never saw the end. They just saw the moment. They lived in the moment, and I cannot blame them for that, because in a wrestler's mind, they think it's never going to end.
Of course,
They
that's
are
I promise you, I've been around so many people in entertainment that there'll be another hit album, or
right.
there'll be another hit movie, or I'll get
Be another comeback.
I'll be in
Right.
another television show or something, and sometimes there isn't one.
No, no, and I think with 19
Sometimes there isn't another territory, you know.
there isn't, and that's what, my dad was pretty much done, 84, 85. He did some touring and different things, but as soon as that territory takeover was done, he was done.
Yeah, the territory era was disintegrating, and
It was destroyed, and a lot of guys quit over that. And my dad did his best until 89. He was off and on wrestling after that. He went to Japan, he went to South Africa, he went to Puerto Rico. He was trying other ways. It just was too much.
which
Yeah, and he was getting older.
which another question I really wanted to get to. We just kind of gotten there naturally, but what
Mm.
would your dad think about wrestling today?
In my honest opinion, he would think that it is not what he left for them.
Hmm.
Uh, he was always took pride in passing the torch, bringing the green guys in and smartening them up, making sure that they carried on that tradition of brotherhood that my dad knew. Now it's more nationwide. It's more like, you don't see a good old promo anymore. You don't see wrestling moves that my dad did. You see them as finishers, and I'm like,
Right.
doesn't make sense to me. And it's just something that my dad took so much pride in, along with the other men and women of that era. They were carrying a torch from the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
They
I
were
th-
taught that way.
well,
And then
I think what's missed by a lot of people, mainly if you weren't there and you didn't experience the territories, I think one of the things was that now with a national audience, everything's much more homogenized and
yes,
the same. Whereas in those days, when you went to a particular territory, you learned the people and you learned what was going on there and you crafted your presentation to those particular people. And the whole wrestling product was for those particular people. And I think
I agree.
it caused guys to reach down and be more creative, and
Yes.
know that they had to do something different for this particular audience to get over. Where
And
now,
that's the whole thing, getting over.
yeah, and it's not easy to do.
It's a very, very difficult part of a wrestler's career is getting over in a new territory. And for some reason, my dad would just come in really hot and he would just do something that would enrage them. And then he's like, I got him.
Yeah.
That's how he would feel. Then once, because he could read the audience, he would walk out and do his normal yelling and, the accent and that sort of thing. And he knew right away, if that's not working, he always had a backup
And that
plan.
wasn't easy to do because when he went to the German gimmick in 1970, that's 25 years after the war was over.
That's right.
And so it
There were a lot
wasn't
of people.
it wasn't like you could just go out there and be a German and that be the end of it. People were
It
going to
was
hate.
frowned upon, yes, because of that time. There was a lot of people in that audience who were in that war.
Yeah, right. And by
And
then and by then we were hating the Russians. So, that was a transition that was going on as well. So it's to your dad's
yes,
credit that he was able to get over so well that far after the war, in my opinion.
like up until the 80s, he carried that character. He did, he never turned to he never turned to baby face ever.
Hmm.
Was always a heel. And then he would go under a mask, like in Nashville for Jerry Jarrett. He was assassin number two,
Hmm.
and with Randy Colley, who was Matt
I remember that. I remember that
Moondog.
because that's my territory. I remember that.
Yeah. So, he decided to give up a little bit of the German and try that for a year. And he was with
Jerry.
Nick Goulis,
Yeah.
and he was with Jerry Jarrett, and and with Randy, and they were masked. Then they were unmasked, and then that was the end of it,
Yeah, well,
right? And that's usually when they leave the territory.
a lot of big guys did that. They took a break from their character and
Yeah.
worked under a hood. Guy Mitchell did, and your dad
Yeah.
did, and several. Randy Colley was 1,000 different masked guys.
Oh my goodness, yeah, and such a nice guy. Oh my,
Yeah,
I got to know Randy. He was lovely.
yeah, very nice fella.
Because my dad had a partner, they were tight. And he liked it like that. That way and he was teaching, he's constantly passing on his knowledge,
Yeah.
like Randy was younger than him and Randy already had experience, but my dad would say, hey, don't do that, do this, and I would hear them discussing it in the living room and I'd be like, I'm not supposed to hear this, but I would hear it anyway.
That's
And that's when
cool.
he usually say, okay, kids, outside.
Yeah. So, when you were a kid, did you ever discover your dad's gimmicks or anything like that in the house, or did he really hide that?
He never
You're like, oh
used
wow, look at here's a German helmet.
See, he never wore a German helmet. That was something Waldo von Erich would do.
Yeah.
And that was a good friend of his as well. He was more like
But he carried a
the
cane,
horsewhip,
didn't he? A crop.
a crop. He had
Yeah, yeah,
always had a crop, and he always had the belts,
yeah, yeah. The
like
strap. The,
but he would in 1970. Keep in mind, this was just the time. I do have a picture, and I'll never post it, of him with a Nazi symbol on his arm, and that was Waldo von Erich's idea. He was more into, he wore full uniform,
oh yeah.
whereas my dad realized that it was crossing the line, and my mother got very angry because she was a survivor of World War II, and she's
Oh
like
man.
as a child, and she's like, what are you doing,
Yeah. Well, I
and he
could
had to draw
see
it back,
this is just another thing to add to her animosity. I mean, because
right?
golly, Holocaust survivors. Wow. I mean,
I know, and I didn't have that knowledge at the time.
well,
This
of
was a
course.
bad thing. Today's day, like when they have the German fellow on WWE, there's nothing tying him to his heritage
Right.
whatsoever.
Right.
And I think that's what my dad was just trying to be like, just scary,
Is there?
without that extra signage on him, which is offensive.
Yeah. Well, there just wasn't the education about it back then either. I mean, they didn't really tell. When you were in school, you learned about history, but they didn't really tell you about the 6 million people that died and all of that. But
And that's where we come from, an era, where the late 60s, early 70s, everyone was, I found, very tight-lipped about everything.
Yes.
People didn't talk like they do today.
No. No.
Back then, like my grandmother would say, shush, we don't talk
We
about
don't
that,
talk about
and
that.
my dad was the same, he's like, no, no. And
Oh
then
my
if I,
gosh, Paige, you know how many times I sat at the dinner table at my grandmother's house and I'd be asking questions like I'm asking you now, and she's like, "We don't talk about that." I mean, it's just the way things were.
yeah, it just avoidance, they didn't want to talk about it. It was not a subject to be discussed, especially with a child and her grandmother or her dad.
Yeah.
My dad really was quite strict on what I asked him,
So, is there anything in particular coming up with CAC that you're really excited about?
I certainly am. So this year is our 60th anniversary. It's
Oh
been
wow.
60 years since the organization began in California. And this year is the 60th celebration. It's the longest standing organization for wrestling and boxing and actors. It's what it started out as, and it's more towards the wrestling now. And so this year we have a big celebration with some wonderful guests coming. I know that a few have been announced already, like Leilani Kai.
Oh,
She will be,
I just sent a tweet out about this last night. And
I
I
am
said
so happy for
there
her.
is nobody more deserving who contributes to this day to the wrestling
She's,
business. I mean, her social media accounts are amazing. And the
she is
memories and the
wonderful.
photos, she must have taken a camera with her everywhere she went because
She
her
was
photos
incredible at category of at recording
documenting.
her
Yeah.
history.
Yes.
And a lot of people, my dad unfortunately did not have that talent, so a lot of missing parts on our past. But with Leilani, she is one of the pioneers of women's wrestling,
I was
and
listening
that was
to
so hard back there.
I was listening to an interview with a country music star yesterday or the day before, and someone asked him, they said, "What would you do over about your career?" He goes, "I would hire somebody to follow me around and take pictures of everything, like everything that
Yeah,
happened." He goes, "So many things in my career I can sort of remember, or somebody will bring up, hey, remember that time we did this or did that? And I can kind of remember it, but I wish I had photos. I wish I had,
but imagine a wrestler's memory and how many
oh,
times they wrestled the same guy every night, and then it
oh, yeah.
switches. They can't remember the year or time. A wrestler's brain is completely different from the average. The concussions, the my dad had memory loss at 50. Just so many concussions. And then one time he had his eyeball completely out. Johnny Rougeau took a chair shot on him. It just went in the wrong angle. And he ended up almost losing his eye, but they had doctors in the back at that time. And well, they still do, well, not for independent, but, WWE have a
That's,
team of
that's,
doctors.
that's why I cannot tolerate when someone uses the F word with wrestling,
Yeah.
the fake word. I can't.
Oh, I don't, never say that to me, ever.
Oh my gosh.
I'll keep you right there, and I'll make you change your mind.
Because I mean, when you saw the trauma that your dad suffered from being in the business, which he enjoyed doing it, and he was his chosen profession, and he wanted
Yeah.
to do it, but he certainly sacrificed and paid the price for it.
Wow.
And there's nothing F about that. It's all
No,
real. It's all real.
it's you know what, he used to have he would come home off the road, and he would lay on the ground, and I used to have to walk on his back just to get his back, like a chiropractor,
Yeah.
like, and get all the cracks out for him because he was so stiffened up, and he was very fluid when he wrestled. It's the after, and then he would have to do a workout the next day because he had to keep his body in shape. And that was one thing he really, really prided himself on, is the constant working out and keeping in shape, because his body was his business.
Is there
That's all he had.
is there anything about the CAC or your dad that I haven't asked you or we haven't talked about that you want to talk about or that you want
About
to?
my dad?
Well, either one, your dad or the CAC, either one. If I haven't asked you something, is there anything in particular you want to say or get across? Or
first of all, if anyone can just please look at the Kurt Von Hess Facebook page, his videos on YouTube. I run the Facebook page and Instagram.
I just accepted your membership into my group, and
Thank you so much, by the way.
I certainly will do some cross stuff. I will go and
Thank you.
share some of that in my group as well, and I have some really serious historians in there that will probably just eat it up and love it. So
Oh, tell me, I love a wrestling historian. And I'm almost becoming one myself,
it sounds like it.
learning.
It sounds like it. Sounds like it.
Yeah, I mean, with that, and then I can tie that into the CAC, and I'll be representing this year at the annual 60th reunion, and we go to Las Vegas, to the Plaza Hotel, and we have pool parties, we have wrestling matches, we have last year there was a roast on Mick Foley,
Mm.
and we had guest panels on there like Jake the Snake and a few other famous, and Jimmy Hart's always there too. Like, God bless him.
Oh,
He is one of our hosts along with Joe Dombrowski, and we just have a really good time.
if I had
And
Jimmy Hart's energy, if I just had that, I mean,
if I could have just a little bit of it, I would be a happy person. He's just so happy and so kind, and he's for being in the wrestling business as long as he has, and the music business too. He was one of the members of the Gentrys. I don't know if you know that.
oh, I do, yeah.
And yeah, and he's just a fascinating person. And to top it off, he was my dad's manager along with King Kong Bundy in Memphis.
I remember
So
Jimmy Hart's first day on television. He was just
I'll
follow.
be hooting and hollering.
Well, no, actually, he just followed Jerry Lawler around, because they went to high school together,
Yes, they did.
Lawler got him in the business, and Jerry would come out and do an interview, and Jimmy would just be behind him, and wherever Jerry went, Jimmy went. And then after a while, he started getting a little bit more bold and a little bit more bold, and then of course,
All of a sudden, he had a megaphone in his hand.
then Jerry Lawler turned babyface, and then we had like 5 years of probably one of the best feuds of all time. With
Amazing. Yeah. And Memphis was.
Jimmy Hart bringing in the dragon for Jerry Lawler to slay every month or two.
Right.
So.
And now he takes his position in the CAC of being our host, takes it quite seriously. He is so wonderful. When I'm out there, I go out and I sell raffle tickets in the audience on those 2 evenings that we have, and of dinners and people and honorees and fans. And he is up there and he says, Paige, he says, go see Paige, and he just is so enthusiastic after all he's been through, and his age, he just doesn't age.
Yeah, he's just I was in JBL's booth in St. Louis, and Jimmy Hart was in the booth next to us, and just, I mean, nobody had to wait to get a picture made. I mean, he was getting them organized and having the pictures made and telling people where to stand and what to do. And I'm like,
Oh, he
man,
knows.
he's going to be more tired than I am tonight, because he's just going like a Energizer bunny. You know what I mean?
I don't know where he gets his energy, but he just brings such life to the dinners and the CAC reunion itself. Having him there, he is like an ambassador of a very long period of time of wrestling.
Well, before I
And
let you go, I got some questions I want to ask you that
sure.
just to do some rapid fire here, just some things
Okay.
about you. So it doesn't have to be anything we've talked about today or anything like that, but what's the best memory that you have of your dad or the wrestling business or being involved growing up in it or anything? What's the best memory that comes to mind for you
Him coming home. That's the
after?
best way I could say it. Anywhere he was, if he was, I can remember standing in Seattle airport. He was coming home from Japan, and I just could not wait to see that bald head coming through that door off the plane. Those are my treasured times, is him coming home and hugging me, and just I missed him so much. And my mother, of course, and my sister did too, but him and I had a relationship that like no other. We're very close. We're very similar in personality, temperament, and I'm just so proud to be his daughter.
Who's the number one hero in your life?
Myself.
Oh, I like that. What's the
Yeah.
top value you subscribe to?
I'm sorry.
What's the top value you subscribe to?
What do you mean by value?
The thing you believe in the most. Like, is it honesty? Is it trust? Is it friendship? Something like that. What's the top?
Well, honest and trusting friendships and family, for sure.
Okay, family.
My family are my everything. My dad has brought me up well, that, you take care of your family and you make sure that you are the boss of your family. And that's what I do.
Who's the most important person in your life?
I would, in spirit, my dad.
What's your favorite thing in the whole world?
Wrestling,
What's your favorite food?
pizza.
Now you just can't, I don't know, we're going to see if you got any recency bias here, because I know you just came back from a fantastic trip, but
I
what's the
certainly did.
what's the most beautiful place you've ever been to?
Recently, it would be definitely Alaska, which has left an imprint on me that I have never felt in a long time. Other than that, I would say Banff, Alberta, is one of my favorite places to be. I just love being in the mountains.
If you could describe success in one word, what would that word be?
Success,
Uh-huh. If you could,
driven.
driven. How do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as someone who carried her dad's legacy well, and with honor and with love.
If you could go back and talk to a very much younger Paige, what advice would you give her?
I would tell her it's going to be okay.
What's your favorite sound?
Birds singing.
And what do you think the best lesson you learned from your dad was?
I would say with my dad, he would always say to me when I got don't let people take over your thoughts and make you angry. Just relax. Don't let them win.
Yeah.
Just
I've been a professional executive coach for over 20 years, and I constantly tell my clients, don't allow anybody to make you anything. Like,
And that's what he really got upset when I used to say get angry at, my sister and I were fighting.
yeah, my sister makes me
Told
mad, right? It's like, don't
Yeah,
allow that. Don't let them, learn to be your own person and not be so driven with other people.
he would really get upset when I would listen to what other people are saying instead of pulling back and keeping my peace, my inner peace. And that is a wrestling technique.
Yeah.
You have people screaming and yelling at you, and what is he doing? He's going,
Yeah, you cannot.
he didn't even do that to make them go louder.
Sure.
That there's a way that you can handle yourself, and I've learned that through him.
There's no
Patience with
way
yourself.
there, and so much of wrestling is manipulation of the crowd, which is commonly referred to as psychology. But
Hmm.
you can't affect that psychology if you don't affect yourself first. And if you
So
don't
true.
control yourself first before you can control the atmosphere of things around you or whatever, that's a great lesson. And
It is.
one that I wish more fathers and mothers taught their children.
Yeah, he brought ring psychology home, and I didn't even know it.
Yeah. Yeah. He was just raising
He
his
was
dog.
upset that I was upset, and it really would make him upset. And because he, in a way, he would feel that it's his fault I feel this way because we're living in Tennessee and I got bullied, or things like that.
A
And he'd
little,
be like, "You just relax. Those people mean nothing, and you just concentrate on you, and have grace and have restraint at the same time."
this is a little personal story, but I used to work for this family, and the grandfather founded the company, and he would come in every morning. Well, a lot of times he'd come into the office, and I'd be outside smoking. And he'd come over to me, and he'd say, Tony, why do you let a little weed that grows out of the ground control you? I never really thought about smoking that way, but he was right. I was allowing tobacco to, I mean, it told me when to go smoke. It told me when to do those things. And I was just amazed that he put it that way. And it really helped me quit it. I really stopped it, because if there's one thing I don't like is I don't want anybody controlling me or anything controlling me.
And that's how I live.
I want to be in control, right? Paige,
And if you're in control, you can steer where you need to go.
Paige, it's been just wonderful getting to know you better. And
you as well, Tony.
I got so much respect for your dad and for your family and your contribution to the business of professional wrestling. And I'm so thrilled that you have found a way to continue to contribute.
And that is I often say, if my dad was here, he would be like so proud. I know that.
He would.
And he is watching over me. I know that. And something has led me to this. And it's, I don't know if it's fate or the stars aligning, but I couldn't find a better position than accepting this position as a benevolent director and carrying on this legacy of 60 years of the CAC helping people.
Well, I can't wait until I'm somewhere in the same place you are, so that we can visit more, and I get to hear more stories, and you can tell me as many of them as you want, and I would be happy to. I will be gratefully listening to that. But thank you for spending some time with me today. Congratulations on your new role. I look forward to watching you develop that role and taking it even farther than what Darla took it. And I know you're going to do that. So that's going to be an exciting time. I'm looking forward to watching.
Thank you so much. It's my absolute pleasure to do this for the business and for the fans and for the historians.
Yes.
I just, I respect historians particularly. They really have helped me over the years discover my dad's career and the hardships with it I knew already. So, but yes, it is my absolute pleasure to be part of that organization and to be the proud daughter of a heel.
Thank you for being my guest today.
My absolute pleasure, Tony. Thank you so much.
What a phenomenal individual. Just a nice, wonderful person. Paige Sutherland, everybody, the new benevolent director for the Cauliflower Alley, replacing my longtime friend and longtime friend to the wrestling community, Darla Staggs, who has earned a very much well-deserved rest from that position. So we're featuring the Cauliflower Alley Club today. They're having their 60th, I believe, 60th anniversary meeting coming up later in a couple of weeks here in Las Vegas. And just in case there's some of you out there who are not familiar with the Cauliflower Alley Club, it started in the mid-'60s, and they had weekly get-togethers at the Barron's Castle Buffet restaurant in Los Angeles, located in the Elks Club building, which was owned by Mike Mazurki. And they still give out an annual award, the Iron Mike Mazurki Award. And those meetings that they were having brought together Mazurki and Al Baffert's wrestling and movie friends, along with a lot of boxing associates of George Parnassus. And at the core of those meetings was the longtime friendship between Mazurki and Art Abrams, who was a printer who worked for the Los Angeles Examiner. Abrams handled early newsletters and banquet programs and printing them in his garage, and served as an executive vice president and treasurer from the start all the way up until he passed away. The club is generally dated to 1965, when it formalized as a fraternal group of wrestlers, boxers, actors, and friends focused on camaraderie, which the Ring of Friendship is one of their slogans. The first banquet was an informal event at the Barron's Castle honoring wrestling legend Jim Londos. That's kind of cool, huh? Simple menu of hot dogs, coffee, and Cokes. About 100 members came. Mazurki was elected president and boxer Lou Nova vice president. And then subsequent early banquets featured stars from the ring and also stars from Hollywood. They started having weekly Wednesday luncheon meetings into the early 1980s at various Hollywood area spots. And occasionally they would have larger banquets, including one on the RMS Queen Mary ship in Long Beach, honoring figures like Gene Fulmer and Sugar Ray Robinson. Plans for a CAC museum there fell through because of a change in the ship's ownership. In 1977, the CAC received nonprofit status, and the club name plus Mazurki's cauliflower ear were registered as trademarks for the club. Around 1980, the organization reorganized due to legal problems involving the directorship. A new board and revised procedures were installed to preserve its nonprofit focus on friendship and mutual support worldwide. The prior hierarchy under managing director Marshall Wright spun off into the separate Golden State Boxing and Wrestling Club. Membership temporarily faced questions until the connections were completed. Under the reorganized structure, formal annual banquet reunions began in earnest. 1983 and 84 at the Valley Hilton Hotel in Sherman Oaks. 1985 to 1998, longtime home at the Sportsman's Lodge in Studio City, and their membership grew to over 3,000 members worldwide. 1994 on, East Coast reunions started, first in Springfield, Massachusetts, and then Newark, New Jersey. A Florida event occurred in 1996. And then in the late 1990s to 2000s, it shifted heavily to Las Vegas venues like the Riviera Hotel, Plaza Hotel, Casino on Fremont Street, Gold Coast Hotel and Casino, and others, setting attendance records. The 40th reunion was in 2005. That just seems like yesterday. And the 45th in 2010. The club continued in Las Vegas through the 2010s. The 2020 reunion was canceled because of that old nasty COVID-19. And it resumed in 2021 at the Gold Coast and later returned to the renovated Plaza Hotel. Mike Mazurki served as president until 1990. His successors have been Archie Moore, Lou Thez, Red Bastine, Nick Bockwinkel, and since 2014, come on, Tony, B. Brian Blair, the three Bs, who's also served as CEO of the organization, and the organization is volunteer run. It's professional wrestling's only 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to supporting people from the industry. And again, its primary goals are fellowship, recognition of achievements, preservation of history, and financial assistance through a benevolent fund. They are having their reunion later on this month. And this year, the James C. Melby Award winner, the same award I won at the Lou Thez George Tragos Hall of Fame in Waterloo, my counterpart is Dan Murphy. And Dan has been a friend of mine for quite some time. He's an American writing journalist, historian, and author based in the Buffalo, Western New York area. Grew up in Western New York. He attended Cardinal O'Hara High School. He graduated from Canisius in Buffalo in 1996 with a bachelor's degree in English and a minor in Irish studies. After college, he worked as a reporter and editor for local newspapers. And his passion for pro wrestling began in his childhood, just like the rest of us, during the early WrestleMania era. He has cited Kevin Von Erich as an early favorite and has been a reader of PWI since he was 12 years old. In 1997, while working as a sports reporter near Niagara Falls, he pitched a story to PWI about a planned UFC event. And although the event relocated, the contact led to writing samples and a long-term relationship with the magazine. Key roles included coordinating the annual PWI 500 rankings of the top wrestlers and overseeing the women's rankings, launched as the Female 50 in 2008. He's written a lot of books, including Body Slams in Buffalo, Sisterhood of the Squared Circle, Wrestlers, Ed Don George, and others. And I can't wait to talk about each one of those books with my friend Dan Murphy, the James C. Melby Award winner for this year in 2026. I am happy to welcome to the Richards Ranch my friend and my guest, Dan Murphy. Let's go to that interview right now. Our special episode this week for, Cauliflower Alley. I picked up something in Waterloo, and I'm still trying to get over it, Dan. So excuse me if I cough every now and then.
It's okay. Anytime you travel, anytime you're on an airplane or in a meeting like that, it tends to happen. So I get you.
I mean, I'm so happy to have you here today. Professional wrestling journalist, historian, author, former independent wrestler. We got Dan Murphy here, who's the winner of the 2026 uh, James Melby Award for the Cauliflower Alley, and I couldn't think of anybody more deserving. So let me just kick off by saying congratulations on that. I'm sure you're pretty excited.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I am. It's an absolute honor. It feels, I'm counting the days. I'm like a little kid, looking forward to Christmas. Every day we're that much closer to finally going to CAC this year, and it's going to be a great time. So I'm very honored that I was selected.
Man, I am too. I'm so happy for you. You were one of the first people that came on this show, and we talked about the Ed Don George book, um, and that so many wonderful things have happened since then about all of that. We were talking before we went on the air about the cool statue that is on my bucket list to see. And you said there's still more events kind of coming up, have been done, and are still being done around that.
Yeah, there was a really cool synergy. So I did the Ed Don George book, and it took me a few years. COVID happened, a lot of things happened, and it was tough to find a lot of the information I needed. So it took a little bit longer than most of the books I've done have taken in the past. But at the same time, a relative of Ed Don George, one of his great nephews, I think, began a project in North Java, New York, which is where he's from, putting up a memorial for Ed Don George. But it's not just for Ed Don. It's also for every year they honor 4 or 5 local veterans from that little town. So they just did that a couple weeks ago. They invited me for the past 2 years since it went up to come and give a little speech on Ed Don, talk about him and his legacy, and then present the awards. And it's very nice. So it's definitely, if you're ever passing through North Java, New York, which there's only one stoplight, maybe two, so it's a quick pass. But if you ever stop in that area, make it a point. You can come to Western New York, see the Ed Don George Memorial, go to Ilio DiPaolo's, and maybe play a round of Destroyer Park golf. So it's a good wrestling day.
And the other thing that's kind of interesting and cool about this is the 60th anniversary of the Cauliflower Alley. So you're landing on a good, even, long number there. So that's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
cool.
It's
And
pretty impressive. I mean, and you've got Ric Flair's getting honored and Bret Hart's getting honored
I
and
saw that. I saw
and
that.
several others, Rip Rogers and
Yep.
Jimmy Corderas and the Glamour Girls. So I mean, as big of an honor as it is to get the Melby, to be honored along with these people is just surreal. It's fantastic.
Some of the people who have served the Cauliflower Alley faithfully, one of them passed away, and then the other one, Darla Staggs, are getting a well-deserved rest from that. And then you have some new board members like Paige Sutherland and Herb Simmons coming on. So the future for the Cauliflower Alley Club is really sensational and bright.
Yeah, it is. I spent a few years on the advisory board for the CAC, and I had to step down this year because just life,
I
kids in
understand.
college and work, because the thing is, CAC, even as a volunteer group, it's a lot of work, and those people on the executive board and the advisory board, they put in a ton of time year round in meetings, going over all sorts of decisions and back and forth on how we can make the event better every year. So yeah, having the new blood on the executive board is a great thing to see, and the future looks really good.
Speaking of Buffalo, wasn't that your first book that you did, the Body Slams in Buffalo?
My first wrestling book, yeah, I did a
Yeah.
book the year before that on the history of the Erie Canal. Just a real short little book, and it sold very well locally. And the publisher was so happy. He says, "Hey, do you have another idea? Something you can turn around quick? Yeah, something on pro wrestling in Buffalo." I popped it out within a year and got it out for like the local sports community, whatever. And it's still selling. It's been out for 20 years. So
Yeah.
yeah, Body Slams in Buffalo. If I were to rewrite it today, I'd add a lot more, but it's a cursory overview of the history of pro wrestling in Western New York.
Yeah, I mean, I've got all of your books in my library because
Oh,
I mean,
wow.
you're a fantastic writer, and they're
Thank you.
they're they're incredible resources. Scott Teal and I were just having a conversation this week about, every wrestling historian should have other historians' books. I mean, we should support one another in that and have those in our library. And all of your books are just, I just love them. I've got a little area. I try to not do screens before I go to bed. So television or computer or phone, I try to shut all that down at least an hour before I go to bed. And that's one of the things I like about having a hard copy of a book is I go to this little reading area right off my bedroom, and there's a stack of books there, and a couple of your books are in there because I love just picking them up and turning them open to just any random spot. And two of those that are on my stack there that are like that are The Sisterhood of the Squared Circle, which you wrote with Pat LaPrade. And I love that book because I can just open it up and boom. And I'm really interested and like to support the history of women's wrestling. I try to post photos on my socials and make sure that those people are never forgotten. But I can just open up your Sisterhood of the Squared Circle and boom, there's somebody that I'm interested in just reading, in a short little kind of biography. So how did you and Pat decide to write that book?
That was actually the original concept was Pat's. That was Pat LaPrade's idea. He had done Mad Dogs, Midgets, and Screwjobs with Bertrand Hébert on the
Yeah.
history of wrestling in Montreal, and with ECW Press. He and I were at a Shimmer wrestling show outside of Chicago, and Shimmer was the independent women's group. And we were talking, and he and I had known each other, and we were kind of drinking buddies, so we hang out during the show, and we're talking. And he says, "Hey, I've got this idea. What would you think about a history of women's pro wrestling?" Like, nah, I don't know. Is there enough? Is there enough there? At the time, we were talking about this in 2014, maybe.
Right.
And I stepped aside for a minute, and I always carry a notebook, especially at that time I was writing for Pro Wrestling Illustrated. So I was taking notes on the show and who to include in the Women's 100 and, things like that, and the magazine did. And I made off the top of my head, a quick outline of if I were to do a women's wrestling book, is there enough to sustain it? And there was. So I went back to him. I said, I think there's something here. We pitched it to ECW Press. They bid on it right away. And it was just the perfect synergy because it happened right at the time when all these people from Shimmer were moving up to WWE and to TNA and elsewhere, later AEW. And WWE got all behind the women's wrestling movement. So it
Wow.
came out right at that crest. It's funny because we end the book looking at what does the future of women's wrestling hold? And we wonder, hey, can women ever headline WrestleMania? And our theory was yes, if Ronda Rousey were to make the jump, because Ronda Rousey is the big name and could just put it over the edge. And within 2 years, that's exactly what happened. So we were right at the crest of that movement. So we caught that.
Man, that's fantastic. And
Yeah,
and
it
then
makes us look like we know what we're talking about.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it just came to me. It seems like, and this is a faint memory, but I gotta add, like, speaking of Buffalo, didn't you write a book about drinking in Buffalo or
I
something?
did. Yeah, I did a book on Nickel City Drafts: A Drinking History of Buffalo, New York.
Yeah, I
And
thought
what
I
that looked
remembered
at,
that.
yeah, I was going to do a book on Buffalo's role during Prohibition because it's a border town, and we elected a former brewmaster for 2 terms whose whole platform during Prohibition was, yeah, we're not going to enforce that here, which
I I
obviously
get.
you had to.
I used to give my lawyer. He's passed away now, but he's been gone now 2 years. Since I moved back here to Kentucky. I lived in Columbia, Missouri. My attorney
Mhm.
and I would meet for Christmas every year, and we'd give books to each other. And he'd give me a book that he thought was interesting that year, and I'd take one to him, and I gave him that drinking book from Buffalo.
Did you really?
Yeah, yeah. It
Awesome.
just I just came to me all of a sudden. Yeah,
That's
that's the
great.
kind of thing that he would dig.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, it's interesting.
how
It's
long were
it's
you at Pro Wrestling Illustrated?
22 years. Started up in '97 and stepped aside in about 2019.
And you were really involved with the rankings and the annual stuff.
Yeah, the PWI 500 is whatever, it's the magazine's known for it. They still do it today. I was just a stringer, so I still live in Buffalo. The office is outside of Philadelphia. But once or twice a year, definitely for the 500, I would drive down, sit with the writers there, and we'd start the ranking process. And we'd maybe in the course of an afternoon, we'd get the top 50 or 60. And then after that, they would say, all right, Dan, finish up the list and then submit it to everybody. And then we'd go through it all. So I really enjoyed that. I mean, it was a lot of work, and it always bothered me when people said, "Ah, the list is just a work." And I mean, so was wrestling, but there was a lot that went into deciding who went where and why. And I spend a lot of time all year long watching matches, going to shows. Like I said, I have a five subject notebook. I still have the habit of carrying one with me. It's right next to me now. And I would just keep notes on everybody I saw. So I see one match and somebody has a really good spot. I'd make a note, look into this person, find out who they are, find out more about them.
Yeah.
And I was able to put the spotlight on a lot of rising, talented wrestlers over the years that I was involved with the 500.
Yeah, that's interesting. One of the other things that I love about pro wrestling, and I just am involved in the territory era.
Yeah.
And of course, in the territory era, we had a plethora of masked wrestlers, and I love the history of masked wrestlers. I love talking about them, and it's not something you see much in today's product. Although one of the biggest programs and angles of this year involved a masked wrestler with the
Grande Americano.
Grande Americano, yeah, or you'll see lucha guys, every now and then. But anyway, Grappler X. Was that you?
Grappler X was me. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, there was a promotion that was just starting in Buffalo. For the longest time, wrestling was under the Athletic Commission. I mean, it still is, but right around 2000, 2001, they loosened the regulations. So they made it possible for independent wrestling to survive. They finally kind of realized that somebody running an independent show in New York is not competition for WWE, running at Madison Square Garden, So they finally loosened some regulations that have been in place for 30 years or more. Anyway, this group, Empire State Wrestling, they asked me to come out and watch a show, and I'm there with the notebook, keeping notes for the 500, and got to know the guys pretty well. And then they'd come up to me and ask me booking questions, like, "Hey, what would you think? How would you do this?" And it kind of became, "Hey, how about you become the booker and write the storylines?" And I did. And from there, I kind of decided I'm never going to ask somebody to take a move that I don't know how to take personally,
Yeah.
because I don't want to put a kid in danger, right? So I started training with the guys, and I found that it helped. It helped my writing because I was able to. If you're going to write about something like wrestling, it's helpful to know how to do it. It's helpful to know what it's like to get blown up in a match. I wore a mask, and what it's like to try to breathe in a mask when you're blown up.
How
Getting
is
the
it?
spot. It's hard,
Like
especially
I
because
always thought about that. Jody Hamilton and Tom Renesto as the assassins worked so much in the South in the summertime and all that, and I always thought, man, and in the 1960s without a lot of air conditioning in
yeah.
buildings, and I
And,
always
and the
wondered
crazy
how
thing,
that was.
when the more experience you have, the less nervous you are. I only wrestled about 30 matches and just did the jobs for people. I just filled out the card and did jobs for the most part.
Yeah,
Um, and I was always a little bit nervous, so I'm probably not breathing well. I think guys like the Assassins, they've been in so long where wrestling was second nature. They could control their breathing. But that was a challenge for me. But the tough thing really is peripheral vision. I had kind of screens, so I could only see shadows and things. And I remember I was doing a match with a tag match, and a big guy got me and my partner, both goozled us, got us up for a double choke slam, and he's bringing us down. And I noticed that I really got up high and posted, and I was up high. My partner only got halfway, so we're coming down at different speeds. And I noticed, and this is all happening kind of in a split second, he hits the mat and he throws his arms out, to bump. And I realize in that moment as I'm coming down, I'm going to land on his arm. I'm going to break his arm.
oh wow.
And in the moment, again, not maybe not the best decision, but I turned, and I took everything in the one shoulder and the collarbone. I didn't get hurt, but I thought I broke my collarbone.
Oh my gosh.
But the thing is, that's those are the things that you don't think of as a writer per se until you kind of get in the ring and you begin to realize all of the moving parts and complexities. And because I had the mask, I was kind of aware he was there, but the peripheral vision wasn't great. So it helped my writing, I think.
I I
I'd like to
I
think.
I was curious about that because I was in the ring a couple of times in the '80s, not in a actual card, but just fooling around with guys, and
Yeah.
so I know what it's like to be bealed, and I know what it's like to be headlocked, and I know what it's like to be uh, all those different takeovers and all of that. You hit the mat and all those kinds of things, but that's been 40 years ago, and having the lack of experience, I think, makes me a lot more inquisitive. Like, well, how do you know this or how do you know that? But I would think it would give you a tremendous advantage for someone like you who actually did it and actually booked and wrote storylines and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, I like to think so, and it helped me just understand it a little bit better. It's just another arrow in your quiver, I guess, as a writer or historian.
Another book that's on my stack that I just open up and read is the Wrestlers, focused on performers that were respected by their peers. I mean, that's a fantastic book, Dan. I mean,
Oh, thank you very much.
it
That was
really is. Brian Young, you wrote with,
yep.
right?
Brian and I did that. Brian, it was his first book. He's a historian. He's into boxing and entertainment, but a longtime wrestling fan. And he and I were talking one day, and we just decided he wanted to do a book where old timers just tell their stories. I'm like, yeah, I mean that's great. And then we talked, I had this idea of looking at the technicians, and somehow we began to collaborate, and the wrestler came out of it. So we interviewed as many wrestlers as we could, talking about the wrestlers that they respected. They're the wrestlers, the real pros. And that's where the book kind of came from. So it was a labor of love putting it together, and it came out again right as COVID was breaking out.
Yeah,
So
I remember
a lot of
buying it when COVID
appearances.
was out. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of appearances and signings didn't happen, but it was definitely a labor of love. So I'm glad that you enjoy it.
Oh yeah. What'd you learn doing all those interviews? What do you think that really came out?
A quick thing. This is in Rip Rogers. You're having Rip on today,
Yep,
right?
it's coming
Okay.
up right after you here.
All right. Well, this is a little tease for that. I don't know if Rip would remember this, but it was at Cauliflower Alley Club several years back, and I was going over this idea. With this book, really, I couldn't really define what a wrestler's wrestler was, and I talked to Pat LaPrade about it. He didn't quite understand it. Greg Oliver didn't quite understand it. And then I was in the gym at the
That's
Cauliflower
okay.
Alley.
I pitched a couple ideas to Greg. He didn't understand either. So
So you gotta spell things out for. No, I'm kidding, Greg. I'm kidding.
we like to give
Um,
Greg a hard time.
but I'm in the gym with Rip Rogers. Early morning, I decided to go and get a little workout in, and he's there and talk to him a little bit as he's doing the dumbbells, and he's still in great shape. And I mentioned, I say, hey, I'm thinking about doing this book, and what do you think? And he looked at me, he stopped what he was doing, he made eye contact. He's like, that's a great idea. That's a book I would read. Like, really? And after that little conversation with Rip, I walked out, and now I went from being, I don't know, I'm on the fence about this idea, to being, this might be something different, and it might have legs, and that's where the book really kind of came from.
Yeah.
So,
At the Waterloo, Steve Johnson congratulated me, and he said, one thing you got that we didn't have is nobody wants to run you out of the banquet room. So I get that was the year of the Bret Hart thing, I guess. And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so Greg has been getting a hard time since that. Briscoe and Bradshaw always tell him hockey was invented in Florida. So
Well, they've got more cups than Canada, it seems, at least lately. Yeah.
what is this? So you're getting the James C. Melby Award. It recognizes historians and journalists who preserve the history. What does this mean to you? And who else has really, whether it's a recipient or a writer or a researcher, who's influenced you the most, Dan?
No, those are good questions. What it means to me, I think it's everything. When I start, and I'll probably mention this at CAC, but when I started up in the PWI, Brandy Mankiewicz was one of the other editors there, and Brandy was great, became a very close friend of mine. She said something early on, and she said, never try to put yourself over as a writer for the magazine. It's like a lot of people will come in and they'll try to be the next Bill Apter and become the character, and she's like, there already is a Bill. Bill's Bill, that Bill, so never try to put the spotlight on yourself. Always try to put it on the workers or the storylines or whatever. And I really took that to heart. So, I really wanted to try to use the position I had with the magazine to share history. I took over the Whatever Happened To column that Scott Teal used to have. I did a short-lived thing called Super Cards and Super Bouts, little things that I could look up history and bring history back to teach a new generation. Because that's how I kind of got a foothold in wrestling, is reading these magazines and wanting to learn more
Yeah.
and putting the spotlight on the history and the younger guys and girls who weren't necessarily getting the attention on the national stage yet. So you never become a wrestling writer to get recognition, especially if you're not trying to put yourself over, but to get recognition for what you've contributed feels terrific. So that's kind of how I feel. In terms of the writers who have influenced me, I mean, Scott Teal is one, Greg Oliver is another one. I love the stuff that Pat LaPrade and Bertrand do. There's, oh my God, George Shire and others. So there's a lot, and I try to kind of pick from a lot of different places and see what I can. Steve Johnson's work is fantastic
Yeah.
with and without Greg, his Londos book. To be considered anywhere adjacent to those names to me, let alone in the same club, is mind blowing to me.
Well, you definitely belong there, and you definitely deserve it. When
Thank you.
you left PWI in 2019, were you a little frustrated with the business?
A little bit. I remember distinctly, I was in well, yeah, I remember distinctly watching WrestleMania that year, and I had just begun dating a woman who has become my wife, and
Oh, good.
yeah, and she was not into wrestling at all. She didn't know. I said, "Listen, I got to watch WrestleMania. That's going to be my day. Is all day. I have to do this. I have to write about it for the magazine. I do a podcast afterwards, PWI, whatever."
Just real
And
quick, what's her name, Dan?
Atara,
All right. All
yeah.
right. And Tara
Uh,
going with you to Cauliflower Alley?
She is. I've
Oh,
actually got about a dozen people from Buffalo coming up. So
oh
my
my
mom is
gosh.
coming, which is going to be great, and
Oh, that's wonderful.
it's going to be very cool. But
Your
I
biggest fan
remember,
will be right there in the front.
yeah, yeah, it's hopeful. But I don't know. It depends. She's my biggest fan on certain days. Certain days,
She'll
maybe
be
not.
your biggest fan that night, I promise you.
But I remember watching WrestleMania that year, and it was just it was before they went to two nights, and it was a all day brutal, and every match was just hope spot, finisher, kick out, finish, and it's just so tedious.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at my wife and now my stepkids, and like I could be doing anything today. I could be taking them out. We can go kayaking. We can be on a hike. We can be doing, and I'm sitting here watching something I'm not enjoying. And after a little while of thinking about it, I'm like, maybe I'm just becoming the old man. Maybe the current product, I can watch it in a little bit, but maybe it's time to step aside and let other people do this. So after a while, a short time after that, I got in touch with Stu Sachs, the publisher, and says, I'm thinking I'm done. And he goes, "Oh, Dan, can you stick around for one more year?" I'm like, why? He goes, "Because I'm going to step down too, and I don't want to do this without you." I'm like, I'll give you like 3 or 4 more months, and that's it. And I stepped down, and then Stu did shortly afterwards, and they have a whole new staff in there. Kevin McIlvaney took over, much more of a focus on the independents, the international scene. Uh, really changing what the magazine was, which is good. They adapted it for 2026. So it's still fresh and it's still out there, but I realized I was no longer the right person to be doing it.
Looking ahead, and I know a lot of times as historians we don't really like to talk about what we're working on or anything like that. But I'm just kind of curious, are there specific territories or eras or performers or aspects of the craft you still like to work on or document?
There are certain things I'd like to do more of a deep dive into and look into. But I'm not nothing. I haven't decided on anything quite yet. I flirted with a few ideas. I really enjoyed after doing the 5 year kind of deep dive on Ed Don George. I look at the wrestlers and Sisterhood. Those were collaborations, and they were like you said, books you can pick up at any point.
Yes.
I might be interested in doing something like that, maybe a collaboration, maybe one that you can kind of jump into rather than a deep dive on one biography, because it's a lot to write about one person's life. But I mean, and I would love to write maybe something about the world class territory. A lot's already been done, but I find that fascinating.
Well, even I've thought about things like that before, and you know what I always think, Dan, is even though some things have been done on certain things, a different perspective makes the book different.
that is true.
And
Yeah,
so your perspective on world class and your thoughts about it and the way that you would document it and tell the story would be different than anybody else. And so I always encourage people to not throw out ideas quickly because there's been things done on it, because your book would be different than anybody else's, and vice versa.
that's true. That is a good point. So who knows?
Uh, Ed Dodd George, I mean, he was a fascinating fellow. I mean, Olympian, champion, promoter. He was amateur and pro eras, spanned many, many years. What was the thing? And I just thoroughly enjoyed that book too. I keep putting you over, but I mean, your books are excellent. And
Thank you.
what surprised you the most in researching Ed Don George?
One thing that, well, one thing that surprised me was I started off the search the way I've started a lot of my books in Western New York, going to the Buffalo History Museum, used to be the Buffalo Erie County Historical Society. They have a research library. And if you go up and you tell the librarian what you're looking for, they disappear in the back. They come out with a big manila envelope filled with all these clippings, and that's the like where I begin the search. I went in and asked about Ed Don George, and they had nothing. They didn't have anything on him. And I thought, well, that's really crazy that there's not more written. And then I went through, I'm going through all the microfilm and everything, and seeing how he's in the sports pages almost every day of newspapers around the country from 1929 until 1941. Ed Don George is everywhere.
That was one of the things that I was really amazed at in reading the book. Is like, man, this dude is a relationship and connection master.
Yeah.
Like
Oh my God.
he made himself interesting to people.
Yeah, yeah. He was a great speaker. He was a great wrestler, amateur wrestler, but he was also a great ambassador for the sport of wrestling because he was they used to call, the grunt and groan business and everything else, and you have all these kind of characters, and people would make fun of the way Londo spoke and everything else. But Ed Don had this charisma. He was a good-looking guy. He small town farm boy. And he was just, maybe the Nick Bockwinkel of the era, a guy that you look at and you say, okay, I believe him, and he's a good representative of the sport. And I think that over the past 5 years, I'm seeing more and more about him. And maybe the book is part of that and the monument and things like that. But it's nice to see that he's getting more attention in the overall sphere.
That's just a fantastic book, and I was just really enthralled and interested in his personal life and all the other things that he faced and he went through and the adversities and things of that nature. I mean, just a fantastic. I wish I could have met him. He was just a
Yeah.
fantastic, and I feel like I
Yeah.
have met him by reading your book.
That's a compliment right there. Thank you. I just a couple weeks ago I was at the Ed Don George Memorial, and his sons came up to me, Don and Ted, two of his three sons, who I'd spoken to over the phone, but I'd never met. And they saw me, and they came up to me and introduced themselves. They were in from Louisville, or I'm sorry, Louisiana and Florida, I believe, respectively. And they both said how, they just want to thank you for the book, and you did such a good job, which is amazing to hear because I'm writing a book about somebody I've never met, and the fact that his sons were able to say to me, you told us some things about our dad that we never knew, and things that they were very proud of and happy
Yeah,
about, and
absolutely.
being able to give that back and share that is as rewarding to me as getting the Melby Award.
I got some just really quick questions
Yeah.
that I want to ask you here, and these are to get to know Dan Murphy a little bit better. So, what's your best memory that comes to mind for you immediately right now?
Just in what capacity? In
Uh,
wrestling, and
just pick one.
just a memory that comes to mind right now. But I guess because we were just talking about Tara, my wedding night.
That's great.
It was a beautiful night with friends and family. Second marriage for both of us, and I think this time, you appreciate the little things and the people who are there a little bit more. And
You do,
so,
yeah.
yeah, that's a great memory.
Who's the number one hero in your life?
Number one hero in my life, it would be my dad. Passed away a few years back, but he's always I had a cousin pull me aside. He had lost his father, my uncle, a few years prior. And he just said in this one moment, and he's not a real deep guy or anything, but he just said, they never really go away. And that stuck with me. They don't really go away. I'm not talking about ghosts or whatever. I'm just talking about they're always
Yeah,
there.
right. Yeah, yeah.
And I think I live every day. There's not an hour that goes by where I don't think of how my dad would do something. So yeah.
Yeah, same here. My dad passed away in 2023, and
Oh,
that's one of the reasons I moved back here to Western Kentucky is be near my mom in her later years in her home, and I have dreams about my dad.
yeah.
I mean, he still very much lives in my mind, like you were talking. What do you think your number one value is?
Number one value. Persistence, if that would be, maybe that's a
I
trait,
think
not a value.
historians have to have that.
Yeah, yeah. And just, I mean, day job is, sales, and you got to chase your sales and finish things off, and, yard work, housework, you got to stay on top of things. So, persistence is something I admire and I try to foster in myself, build in myself.
Every no
Persistence,
gets you
myself.
closer to a yes.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
get those no's out of the way. You get closer to a yes.
I just took up disc golf. I'm just kind of playing around with disc golf now, and
Well,
I was throwing, and some experienced guy was behind me, and I had a terrible throw, and I felt embarrassed because I'm still new, a terrible throw. And the guy just said to me, and again, sage words coming from an odd source. He's like, "Any forward progress is forward progress."
1% a
Yeah,
day, brother.
I like it. Yeah,
1%. Who's the most important person in your life?
most important person in my life. Well, immediate family. My wife, my stepkids. Everything revolves around them.
Back to that disc golf thing, I was just thinking, repetition builds skill. and
Yeah,
and persistence as a value would come in handy there because obviously when you begin anything you're terrible. I just think about regular golf,
yeah, yeah.
and just continuing to get those repetitions in until you finally kind of figure it out. So
Exactly. Yeah. And in disc golf, it's the discs are all different, and the wind is different, and the courses are different, and every day is, every throw is different. So it's fun.
what's your favorite thing in the whole world?
Favorite thing in the whole world. Does wrestling count? Can I
It
say
does, yeah.
that? No, you know what? I'll tell you my favorite thing. If the camera's on, I don't know if you can see him right there. That's
Look
my
at him, look at
that's
him.
my beagle. That's Gordy.
All right, I'm very much a dog guy.
Yeah, I've got
My
three of them. But Gord is I've had Gord with me for 9.5, well, 8.5, no, 9 years now. 9 years. He's 10. And he is the other two dogs are sleeping out somewhere else in the house, but Gord is always at all times within arm's reach of me. He'll always stay right by my side. So
over
he's
the
my boy.
over the course of my life, I've had six blue healers, and
Oh,
first one,
nice.
first one when I was about 5 years old. But Oreo was my last one, and she was my first rescue dog, and she passed away in November 2024. And I think
Mm.
now here we are, heading into the second half of 2026. I'm just about ready to get another one, but
Always. I've had enough people, it's, oh, I can never replace them. You're not replacing them. You're stepping in for another dog that could use you and that you could use.
Yeah, about a year and a half is usually my time in between.
Yeah.
I don't know. I have that morning time where
See, what I do is I keep three, and one's the older, one's the puppy, one's in the middle,
oh, well,
and
you've
when you
got the
bring in a new
rotation
puppy,
already. Yeah.
they teach each other. It's like you get the new puppy, and the older one's like, "This is how we do things." You can't pee over here. You go outside. Got
Yeah,
the
the
doggy
dogs
door,
are
got them
just
all working.
fantastic. Like they're pack animals, and there's always a
Yeah,
leader and a teacher and yeah, they're
yeah.
smart. What's your favorite food?
Ilio Apollo's. Anything on the menu at Ilio Apollo's. Although I'm in a little bit of trying to drop weight for CAC. I want to look good. It's my red carpet. You don't get this often, so
I
I'm on a
went through several weeks of going, I hope my suits still fit because
yeah.
I haven't worn them in a while.
I'm on a strict diet right now. I'm trying to drop another 15, 20 pounds. Well, 15 would be good, but I'm down a little bit. I'm going to keep going. So
It's a
right now, my favorite food is oatmeal.
persistence. Keep that persistence. Most beautiful place you've ever been to?
Killarney, Ireland. Killarney National Park. Was there one time. I was horseback riding in the park right as the sun was rising over the McGillicuddy Reeks Mountains, and just running alongside the wild red elk that are there. And it was just one of those things where you realize, I don't know if life ever becomes more beautiful scenery wise than this.
Certainly winning this award and being recognized by one of the leading historical clubs, the Cauliflower Alley, puts a stamp on your success. But if you could describe success in one word, what would that word be?
Impact. The impact you have on others, the impact you have, whether your stuff, I mean, this is more than one word, but
Yeah,
impact is the
sure.
word. But whether your stuff makes a difference to people, and whether it's appreciated. I mean, maybe that's not the best, but I think impact would work.
It's made an impact on me, and I certainly appreciate it. How do you
Thank
want to
you.
be remembered?
It's Grappler X. No.
Well, we mentioned it. We keep the
Yeah.
legend of
The
Grappler
secret
X
is
going.
funny thing about that, and just real quick, is
Yeah,
I was doing a book signing years ago with Dick, the Destroyer Buyer, another masked guy, and I
one of
was
George
promoting.
Shire's favorites, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. And he's on the cover of Body Slams in Buffalo, so we were there signing books, and I was promoting Empire State Wrestling. I was booking, and he didn't know that, but I had the flyers for Empire State out there, and nobody knew I was Grappler X because the booker, but I was just doing job duty, whatever. So,
Yeah.
but he picks up the flyer and he looks. He's like, Grappler X. I like the look of this kid, because he was Dr. X, and
Oh yeah.
and I'm just thinking, it's me. I'm not going to say anything.
Wow,
But
that's
yeah.
awesome. If you could go back and talk to a younger Dan Murphy, what advice would you give him?
Uh, Save money. Just save money. I mean, life is, we're in I was just watching a video earlier. I'm Generation X, that sandwich generation. My mom's still here. My wife's parents are around. We have stepkids. Have to take care of the parents and the kids, and nothing. You got kids' college loans and parents with medical things, and
Yeah.
it's just better to be prepared. So save money because one day you'll need it.
Do you have a favorite sound?
Favorite sound. Uh, the dog behind me, Gordy, my beagle dreaming.
Yep.
Little whimpering noises he makes when he's dreaming.
Well, not only have you experienced a lot of life, but you've studied a lot of lives as well, because a lot of your books are about the lives of people. What's the best lesson you've learned?
To stay true to yourself. Um, to not live your life according to other people's plans for you, but live the life that brings you happiness. And you'll see that over and over in Sisterhood of the Squared Circle, and Ed Don George's book. People who didn't do what society had laid out for them, didn't follow the plan, and took a risk, and they lived their own life, and it paid out for them.
A lot of our listeners will recognize these names, but even if you don't recognize some of them, look them up, and you'll find some interesting stuff. Names like Scott Teal, Stephen Yohe, Vince Nevada, Tom Burke, George Shire, Dennis Brent, Dave Meltzer, Don Luce, Mike Rogers, Greg Oliver, Steve Johnson, Koji Miyamoto, Jason Presley, Bertrand Hebert, and Pat Laprade, and that list will now include Dan Murphy, my guest today, the winner of the 2026 Cauliflower Alley James C. Melby Award. And once again, Dan, congratulations. It's a wonderful honor for you.
Thank you so much, and being on the show is an honor as well. Thank you for everything.
You bet, man. Thanks for coming by.
No problem.
Man, I hope you enjoyed that visit between Dan Murphy and myself. Isn't he just an incredibly nice fella and so intelligent, such a great writer? I could only hope that someday my writing skills would somehow approach those of Mr. Murphy. I mean, my goodness, those books. I love every single one of his works, and I hope you check them out sometime. And that's a nice congratulations for Dan, and an award very well deserved at the Cauliflower Alley Club this year. All right, the show rolls on, and next up, I got to mention my sponsor. While you're sitting there soaking up all these old school wrestling stories, don't forget to actually smell like you belong in our territory. Of course, my sponsor is the Grizzly Up Soap Company, the real deal family outfit from Hopkinsville, Kentucky, cranking out small batch goat milk soaps that hit harder than a forearm smash, harder than a power slam. Whether you need oatmeal milk and honey to smooth things out, Kentucky bourbon, of course, my favorite, then strong, no nonsense, Tony, not no sense, no nonsense scent. Say that fast. Who writes this stuff? Southern Comfort is another great brand that they have of soap that will make your bathroom and you smell fantastic, and it'll help you wind down after the show today. They got you covered no matter what you need. They've also got beard oils, body butters. Again, who writes this? Beard oils and body butters. That's a good country song, isn't it? If you want the full Grizzly upgrade, you can do that. We've got something coming up really, really soon, and I've got to get with these guys to get this lined out because I'm excited to have this for you guys. Get on your soap box, which is going to be a special soap box made up of products from the Grizzly Up Soap Company for our listeners and watchers at the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel History Show. So we got to get this Get On Your Soapbox thing moving, man, because I'm excited to get this into the hands of some of you guys. You can shop online at grizzlyupsoapco.com or swing by the shop at 200 East 9th Street in good old Hopkinsville, Kentucky. If you're going to be a bear, be a grizzly and smell good while you do it. Grizzly Up Soap Company, clean up like a legend. That brings me to my final guest for today and the main event of today's show, a guy by the name of Hustler Rip Rogers. He worked in Angelo Paffo's ICW, which is where I first saw him and saw him many, many times. He was part of a duo with his wife, Brenda Britton, and he was an amazing singles wrestler. He got into a tag team. It was kind of a funny tag team, the Convertible Blondes, which was obvious that Mark, or Rip, was not a blonde, and Pez was obviously not a blonde, but they were converted to blondes, and they had a third member, which a lot of people don't remember. But early on, they were a three-man team, Rip Rogers, Pez Watley, and Gary Royal, who would go on to become the NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion. They used the Freebird rule and won the ICW United States Tag Team Championship 2 times. And he also teamed up, Rip did, with Randy Savage early on. He left ICW after a little bit of a family dispute with Randy, Angelo, Lanny, who were the other partners. Rip was a partner in the company, as were some of the other wrestlers. In 1979, he went up to the Pacific Northwest in the NWA Portland and worked for Don Owen. He aligned himself with Buddy Rose and Ed Wiskoski. and made appearances in Vancouver's All-Star Wrestling as well. He also gained experience through bodybuilding competitions. I remember that year that he and Randy were in the Mr. Kentucky bodybuilding contest. It was pretty cool. 1984, he went to Jim Crockett Promotions in Mid-Atlantic Wrestling and Georgia Championship Wrestling. 1986, he worked for Ron Fuller in the Continental Wrestling Association, where he worked as the Hustler and had a ongoing, never thought it'd ever be over feud with the exotic Adrian Street. And he spent time in Stampede, wrestling in Calgary as a mid-card heel. And he had a strong run. I'm sorry. Sorry, excuse me, guys. He had a strong run in 1989 in the World Wrestling Council in Puerto Rico with Abu Dean as one of his partners. He went on to do independent work, and now he is best known as one of, he's retired now, but he was one of the most talented and wonderful and thorough trainers of talent in professional wrestling. And that is the award he is being bestowed, upon him this year, the Ron Hutchinson Trainers Award from the Cauliflower Alley. And I have been looking forward to this so much. And Rip has told me that this will not be the last time he's on my program. We're going to have him come back. We have some things we want to talk about. And so he is more than willing to do that. And he's a good friend of mine. He was the first person, when I left Waterloo after the Hall of Fame in July, I said goodbye to JBL and James Beard and James Beard's nephew. They were getting in the pickup truck they had rented, and they were driving to the airport to fly back to Texas, and I was driving back to Kentucky. We said goodbye in the parking garage. I got in my truck, and no sooner had I gotten out of the parking garage and gotten on the highway home, and my phone rang, and it lit up on my dashboard who was calling, and it said, Hustler Rip Rogers. And Rip called and was the first person to call me after the Hall of Fame weekend and congratulate me on the Melby Award. And I will always treasure that and always remember that and always be appreciative of that. And I'm appreciative of our relationship. And I can't wait to share this conversation with you here at the Richards Ranch with the one and the only Hustler, Rip Rogers. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel History Show. I'm Tony Richards, joined today by the winner of the, is it the Ron Hutchinson Training Award, Rip, that you got?
Yep.
Yep.
That's what, see, I seen this thing a long time ago, and I thought it said 86 or whatever the hell it was. I thought Ron was going to get honored this year, was what I thought.
But no, it's you.
I know that, but I didn't know that.
Right.
I found it out on my goddamn show, I think last week or the week before or whatever.
Yeah, I was watching. I saw.
Okay, I didn't know.
I saw Brian Blair and Ron Hutchinson, and it kind of caught you off guard a little bit.
Yeah, because I didn't think nothing of it. I was thinking for next year.
Hey, one thing that you and I have in common, we've never talked about this, but I wanted to bring it up. But you and I both watched Phil Golden's All-Star Wrestling.
From Paducah, Kentucky.
That's right. And not a lot of people can say that.
Well, first of all, they got to be old if they saw it. And then you had to adjust your antenna as I'd get on the roof. If I wanted to see the Sheik in Cincinnati, I'd adjust it to the east. If I wanted to go down south, so I could see Louisville wrestling. And then I'd go west and I'd look for Phil Golden's All-Star wrestling there.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the first wrestling show that I saw on television, and the Bass brothers were there with Ma Bass, and they were the first tag team I saw at a live wrestling show, too, in 74.
Okay, the first show I ever went to was 1961, Shields High School, which was Seymour High School. I was 7 years old. I watched Dick the Bruiser against Cowboy Bob Ellis.
Oh, my gosh.
I remember Joe and Guy Brunetti was there, but that's all I remember. My grandpa took me, and I was hooked. And I was hooked from then on.
That's right. Yeah, I was hooked on it too. What precipitated you to get into the business? How did that work?
Hell, I don't know. I'm just when I graduated from Seymour High School in 1972. I said, I'm going to college and play football. Then this is when everything was kayfabe, right?
Right.
I said, I'm going to find some way to become a championship wrestler. And that's what I did. So I was a school teacher in Union City, Indiana. I taught PE, health science, and biology. Then I was a football coach. And then I became, I said, excuse me, this ain't, I'm going to find out some way to be a wrestler. I moved back to Indianapolis and ran Hofmeister's Gym, which is the oldest gym in America in the same building.
Oh, wow.
I met handsome Jimmy Valiant there.
That's the relationship.
So all of a sudden, we're taking my car to go to Louisville and Evansville, right? Then we drive back that night and everything. And first he had Claire was his wife, and then this is when was when he was with Big Mama on the side, no, he's got Claire now. That's the new one. I'm thinking about what the old one was, but I was at Handsome Jimmy's house in Niles, Illinois, and he had the big gym in his garage. But when he'd come to the gym, he'd do one set of everything.
Oh,
and he always had the cowboy boots on, the flared jeans, of course, no underwear, the gold chain, and the sweater. He'd do one set of everything, but he'd just barely rep out. It was all like a fucking rib, like he was working me.
How long did you ride with Jimmy?
Not very long, just enough to meet people and whatever. Because I had shit to do, shit to find out, and I had to get in this son of a bitch.
Mm-hmm.
If not, they're just going to string me along and use me like all the fucking boys. You know that.
So who did you learn from right off the bat?
I don't think I really learned anything for a long time. It was I didn't have.
You're just watching.
And that'd be like I was just a mark. I went to all the shows, and pretty soon I was working Dick the Brute. But I went to Oak Hill, West Virginia, and bullshit my way in. I've told that story on a lot of them. A buddy of mine, Steve Cooper, who was Randy Savage's manager, he was from Southwest Virginia. So he went home and worked the show, and I didn't believe him. But he had taped it on the TV or whatever it was. I had an audio of it, of his name being. I said, okay. So the next week I went with him. That week I met the original Cuban assassin, Angel Ancevita. Mm-hmm. I met the Batten brothers, who were wrestling each other and almost killing each other, both of them working in hoods. And then I got, because the guy said, Warren Schoenbeck, he says, hey, where you from, Indianapolis? I said, yeah. He goes, well, you must work for the Bruiser. Of course, I said, yeah, right. I didn't know what the hell he's talking about. Then he said, are you babyface or heel? I said, yeah. He goes, oh, good. You work both ways. And I'm going, what the fuck? He said, when you get the pencil, go home. When I get the pencil, go home. When I get the pencil, go home. What the fuck is he talking about, right? So
you're like, I saw the Sheik stabbing people with the pencil. Is that what he means?
No, he was.
He meant the book.
He would be sitting there ringside, and when he'd put the pencil to his nose, that meant go home. So when I get the pencil, go home. I just got here. I didn't know one thing of terminology, right? Because it was just so fucking kayfabe. And then I ended up working for Bruiser, and I ended up working for the goddamn Sheik, and the Sheik worked for me in ICW when I was a business partner with him. Mm-hmm. And he just laughed, and the list goes on and on.
How did you meet up with Angelo and Randy and them?
Well, in 1977, there was this old Carney guy named Don Pruitt, or Don Brandenburg or whatever. He booked me in a show. It was Nick Goulas' Christmas Night Spectacular. And me and Lanny, they had some kind of tournament, and I was just plain old goofy Mark Shire, didn't know nothing, but I was tag team partners with Lanny. So I met him. And then when I met him, I was working I got into Maritimes in 78. This is when Randy, Lanny, and Angelo went out there and worked with Emile Dupre. It was Dupre's first territory where he had TV, because before he had no TV. And Emile was always 2 girls, 2 midgets, a masked guy. You know what I mean? But then the guys that Al Zink went out of business because he spent too much money. But then I worked for Emil 78, 88, 90, and 97. And the last time I was there, I drove Bad News Alan Coadge. He was in the front seat with me. I was driving, and he was just talking and telling stories. But I met Edge and Christian, Scott Diamore on that, Rick Martel when he was the Supermodels. And so he ran, I don't know how long it was, and then right after that, I got back, and Danny Davis wanted me to buy into OVW, so I did that.
Right. 78 is when Angelo came back and got his license in, I think, Lexington. He got his Kentucky promoter's license, I think.
No, it was in Judy's name because you couldn't be a promoter and a worker, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
his wife's Judy's name. You know, Don Pruitt is a name around Kentucky. I think it is. Notorious name.
Well, he was Don Pruitt, but then he was Don Brandenburg, and his wife would take the money and she held it like a carnival person, a carny, right? She would just zoom, then bills out. So I never seen anything like it. It was so good.
What did Don Pruitt look like?
Just a middle-aged, heavy guy, sort of balding hair. I knew right away. I learned wrestlers don't tell the truth about anything, so I was prepared for that.
Yeah.
But I was the guy that named Angelo was the carpetbagger. I named him the miser because then he started when I bought in with him, and he was the miser.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. I used to go to all those shows every week that you guys would do. How long were you there? Till it closed?
I was there,
were you there till it closed? 85?
No. Randy, let's see. My first wife, Brenda Britton, was the ring girl. Then she started out as Randy's manager, and Randy wanted her, and he got mad because she wanted me. So I just went off and started working Watts, because Roop, Orton, Garvin, Malenko, all those guys went through, and then they left early and stuff because they couldn't make it on the salaries we were taking. But I already had enough money to stick by, and then because it's like when Angelo ran the territory, we had 2 diesel vans to carry a babyface group and a heel group. He just bought them, so the trans was there. Then he brought a brand new Iveco ring truck too. So at one time, a lot of times we was double booked, but on 2 Saturdays we actually ran 3 shows with 3 different fucking crews.
Wow.
So on one crew, I would take the money. I'd settle up, like if we was at the Raleigh County Civic Center in Beckley, which we was running at the first Wednesday. Of course, the first Wednesday of the month is always your best draws because all the people that are on Social Security or crazy money or whatever you want to call it, they had money that the first week. So we always ran Pikeville. Then we ran Johnson City was Tuesdays. The first Wednesday of the month was Beckley. And I can't remember I get confused of what territory was in. I
was at the National Guard Armory in Paducah, Kentucky on a Friday night, and I saw Brenda and Pam Watson in a mud match.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Was that a one thing, or did y'all do that around?
No, we went around. Hey, when we had the mud match, it drew everywhere.
Yeah.
When we had the bear, it drew everywhere. So we could have not had wrestling and just have what we do. It'd be like we advertise in Purdue, the Paducah Bear Wrestling Champion. But it was determined by the fans' applause. So in other words, all your relatives would come in because we would give you a $10 trophy, but it would say Paducah,
Bear Wrestling Champion.
Yes, exactly what it was. Because you could go out there and not touch the bear, but if all your family, whoever gets the most applause, that's what it was. That's the way it was done.
I remember, man. That was so cool. That was cool. And of course, I didn't have any relatives there, just me and my two buddies. So I was never the Paducah Bear wrestling, Jamie.
Yeah. But I mean, there would be some guys, and they would go to this town, and they would go to this town too, and take their troop with them, which we encourage. We just want an extra 15 people there to buy fucking tickets, right?
Right. Where did you enjoy working the most?
Calgary.
Really?
Yeah, I like Calgary because your transportation was provided.
Stu Hart had the van, right?
Yeah, we had the van, and it would always break down. And then he had a bunch of not dead vans, but different parts out of there, and they'd fix it, and then we would go to the next one. But I always wrote, but Jerry Morrill, which I said he could speak 4 languages, but none of them were goddamn English. But we would have all the guys, and we'd be picked up at the Tanimall. That was the hotel. I remember Bruce Hart took me there the first night.
Yeah.
The Tanimall hotels where all the boys stayed. There was a tit bar going to your left. There was a tit bar going to your right. So I just think I get picked up at the Tanimall, dropped off at the Tanimall. There was 2 buffets within a block each way.
Wow.
BJ's gym was about a 10-minute walk to my fucking left. And I remember that's when little Harry Smith would be there working out. And I'm trying to think of BJ's kid who was Nutty Teddy Hart. Yeah, the Cat Man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they would be little fucking kids. I'd always say Teddy would be swinging from the chandeliers, but that was an exaggeration. That was a wrestler. I pulled a Dusty and made a 50-second story into 6 minutes. You know.
Where did you like the working the least?
I didn't. There wasn't. I just loved the wrestling business so much. I just wanted to go see different territories, see different styles. How did they do TV? Well, they got a 2-camera setup. The Von Erichs had the 6-camera setup and everything. You would steal angles. This is when there wasn't cable TV.
Of course.
I mean, I'd see Gary Ports, Garfield Ports, Jeff Ports' son, but then he'd have another name when he was in Calgary. Now I can't think of it right now because I'm trying to think of it. And it'd be like Johnny Rods would wear the same clothes, but he'd be Jabba Rook someplace and he'd be Johnny Rods someplace.
Right. So
if you're a historian, you're saying, yeah, you start laughing again because you heard about it or whatever. But guys today, they don't. Nuh-uh.
I
don't.
I spoke to, well, I was just going to say, I spoke to you as I was driving home from Waterloo the other day, and I told you Ron Fuller was there, and I know you wish you would have been there because you really liked working for Ron, didn't you?
Oh, I love working for Ron. Never told me what to do. He said, hey, I'm going to have you come in and work with Adrian Street. I said, this is going to be fucking cool because I had met Adrian in Global. And we stayed together, and we did nothing but tell fucking stories. So I know his story, and he knew mine. He had the valet, I had the valet. It was nothing but fun, and I worked with him 26 weeks in a row around the loop. And then when I was done there, Ron says, "What do you want? Who you want to work with?" I said, "No, I'm leaving." He said, "What?" I said, "Oh no, I'm trying to get all these territories that are still open." So that I can learn their style and learn their history and shit for later on. He says, okay. So the last thing he booked himself against me. I got the heat on him. He beat the shit out of me, and he beat me, and he spanked. And Brenda, he put her over his knee and he spanked her too. So he just killed us off. But it was a comedy thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But I said, oh, thank you very much. And then I went to the next place.
And I told you Roy Lee was there too, Roy Lee Welch.
Yeah. Oh, Roy Lee was so funny because Roy Lee always took the money, right?
Right.
And, of course, everybody had their clicker and their counter. And there might be this many people there or this many people, but the house was always basically the same. So he was skimming how much and then they'd split that up. But it doesn't matter because a promoter could pay you anything you wanted to, no matter what. If you liked you and you had a big guarantee, he's losing money on you, but he's screwing the underneath guys because the guys on guarantees, they had to get their money first. the underneath things, they're gonna stay 6 weeks and leave because they can't make it. It'd be like you come in and work for Nick Goulas for 6 weeks just to try and break even.
Did you work for Goulas?
Oh my God, yeah, I was the infamous disco kid there.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
So I was the first guy to have goddamn music since the original Gorgeous George. And I'd have the boom bops and everything. I had McCarlin Hildegard shit. I had the black afro, had the big pick in my hair. Was I rot? Yes, I was the worst wrestler in the history of wrestling. But you got to start somewhere.
Were you there at the same time Randy and Dutch were doing their thing?
Yes, I was. Yeah. And they had the territory was so bad that when them two worked, it was goddamn magic. It was fucking magic.
Yeah, that kept Nick going a little while after the split. Yeah. So why you lived with Randy Savage? You probably knew him better than anybody else.
I know him better than anybody in the goddamn world besides his fucking parents.
Why were they always getting into scrapes and problems? I mean, they were down in the Gulf Coast territory. They got into it with Foley and Heath and and all of that, and then Randy gets into it with Bill Dundee in Nashville. Why were they always getting into that kind of stuff?
Well, that was Randy. Now the thing, what it was what you don't know is, like, in Memphis, we was in opposition with Ron Fuller. Mm-hmm. We was in opposition with pretty much all of Jarrett's tapes, or they had the strongest station in town in Memphis. We had a shitty station on a shitty time slot that would get knocked around. They had that solid TV time slot. They had the good station in Evansville. We had a shitty one. They had the good station in they had Channel 3 Louisville. That was the best station in town. We was on Channel 41.
Lexington.
No, that was Louisville.
But I know, but y'all were based in Lexington, so
we was based in Lexington because what we did was we made TVs. We made the TVs in Louisville at WDRB Studio, and we made 10 tapes in 2 days. Then our first TV was Hazard, so we moved to Lexington because that was the closest thing to Hazard. That's how that thing started.
But y'all had some stuff there at Rupp Arena,
Oh yeah. See, before we was running, we got Henry Clay High School.
Yeah, big high school basketball gym.
Yes, it was good, but Randy wanted to try Rupp Arena. So what we did the biggest we ever did in our history, and we took out these huge ads and everything. So what we drew, but we didn't make no money. So that's stupid.
Yeah.
Now we need to go back to the goddamn high school and make a profit, and not because when Jarrett would come out with that big fucking beautiful fucking ad every once a month, right? Mm-hmm. And then Randy said, we're looking minor league and shit. I said, well, we got to look in minor league because we are minor league, And then Randy, he eventually made up with them. And then
but y'all's best drawing town was Frankfurt, wasn't
it? Yeah. Well, no, Becky was.
Because you didn't really have any competition in Frankfurt. Jarrett didn't really run there.
See, what happens is Tuesday nights they ran Louisville. And then they ran somewhere else Thursday. I can't remember where it was.
Well, every now and then they'd run Madisonville or Owensboro or something like that. Okay. It was a spot show night, Thursday night,
Yeah, I just remember, and then of course me and Randy, I was Randy's best friend at the time, so we had to go to fucking matches.
Right.
And then so he's wanting to fight him. You know what I mean? But he's walking around. Everybody knew who he was from TV, and they knew he was fucking challenged them, and they were all pussies.
Yeah.
And they were just told to just ignore us, right? That we'll go away. And that was the best way. And that was the best way to go. You don't even recognize the competition. I was just minority partner, so I just shut the fuck up, but did as I told. And I had to be on. If you're either with Randy or against him.
Yeah. So Randy was kind of going nuts, wanting to challenge him head on. What was Angelo's thoughts about it?
Oh, well, Miser was the head, but whatever Randy wanted, Randy got. He was a member of the National Honor Society. He played goddamn minor league baseball for fucking 5 years. He learned to fucking throw left-handed when they cut him they said we wanted a left-hand first baseman, right?
Right.
So he learned to throw fucking right-handed.
Yeah.
And then he said, holy shit, how do we get rid of this mother? Because they scared Randy would burn the clubhouse down.
What was Lanny's thoughts about it?
Lanny knows. Lanny's brother we called Randy the Czar, C-Z-A-R, the Czar, right. The leader, right?
Right.
And he was just the opposite of Randy. Lanny was so dope, didn't give a shit about anything, just wanted to eat, half-ass train, do whatever else you could do without getting in trouble. And he was like, he was one of the guys that was drinking a gallon of it was distilled water then. I never seen him drink any pop or eat chocolate or anything. He never ate any junk food. And he was the guy that he started the moon. He would do the moonsault, but it was called a sky drop.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah, but he was so fucking good. And so we had the big match with me against him. In the hair match, I got my goddamn head shaved. And I kept hard weighing him, busting his eyes and headbutting him his eyes. And his eyes were black for about 2 fucking weeks. But we give him the hair cutting all the way down to the fucking nub. So we did as we were advertised.
You guys had one of the most amazing rosters in 1980. I mean, you had,
oh my gosh,
you had Savage and Garvin on top. You had Bob Orton Jr. and Bob Roop for the TV title. You had you and Pez Whatley. You had Lanny and George Weingroff and against the Devils duo. I mean, it was an amazing group of talent.
Yeah, and the Devils duo, that was Miser's old team when he had from Bronco, how many years? Yeah,
Bronco
with Bronco.
Lubitsch. Bronco Lubitsch.
With Broncos. And when I was in Dallas, Bronco was a manager, and I'd start laughing because you put his shoulder down, and he wouldn't get down. He'd either count with his foot or he'd just go 1, 2. I go, what the fuck is this? You know. But I said, oh, that's just Bronco. Oh, okay. Now I understand how he does it, so I'll be ready for it.
Hey, was it a car accident that caused you to start doing the training with guys?
You mean like in
what caused you to get out of the ring and start training guys? I thought it was a car wreck. I thought you were in a car accident or something.
Well, I got hit and run left for dead. Mm-hmm. But what I was doing first, I was Danny Davis was training the WWE guys, and it was so much stress. He sort of like had a heart attack.
Oh my!
The kayfabe heart attack, and he was fucked up. So he said, "Can you take over?" So I said, "Sure." So I just took over, but I was his business partner at that time. And then we went to Jim Cornette's mother's funeral, and he showed me the new building, the plans for that. So we moved to the new building. It's still the same building that they have OVW at now. But then I was there. I was there 20 years. Then all of a sudden, I just got sick of I just got tired of it. I was just burnt out. You get that in any job, right?
Oh, of course.
Of 20 straight years, and I was living in Indianapolis and driving to goddamn Louisville every fucking day, right? And they wouldn't give me no health insurance. WWE wouldn't, so I had to get my own help. I had to get another part-time job, so I was working at UPS at night. So I was getting very little sleep, but I was training and everything. And that was it. But yeah, I got hit and run left for dead. Then I seen the woman I was getting honored for some kind of wrestling, this and that. And they was honoring me and her because she was a All-American track girl.
The girl that hit you? Yes,
the girl that hit me. And I said, hey, and I told her name. She said, yeah, that's me. Of course, she was fat now and a lesbian. Mm-hmm. And I said, you don't remember me, do you? I said, you were the guy that fucking ran over me and took off, and I got your driver's license. I got your fucking the thing on
License
the
plate.
Well, I got your license plate, and that. So I've been fucked up every day since then in my fucking life. But what happened to her? Nothing. Had no insurance, no license, driving somebody else's car. But she was the black lesbian, so of course she got away with it.
I want to read something that you put in your book that I really loved it. It really resonated with me. It says, the business didn't really change. People are the same. Today's wrestlers, unfortunately, don't have the opportunity to work 6 or 7 days a week in territories and be led by real veterans to learn to call it in the ring, to learn different regional styles, and to be different characters. I mean, repetition builds skill, right? And
yeah,
what I love about that was the first part of what you said. The business didn't really change. People are the same. The things that people care about and their psychology. We talk about the wrestling business changing, but I like what you say. The business didn't really change. People aren't any different than they ever were, right?
Right. But today's wrestling,
doesn't really focus on that.
They don't know how to do old style shit. They've grown up watching stupid WWE. They grew up now watching AEW. So in other words, there's nobody teaching traditional wrestling. But the companies don't care. How much money did the TKO guys make?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And the owners, and they're not wrestlers. They don't give a shit. It used to be, Bill Watts was in Louisiana, but he also had parts of a percentage of Atlanta, percentage of Dallas, a percentage of Eddie Graham's thing in Tampa. And Ole was the same way. So me and you would be business partners. Hey, I need these. Can you use these underneath guys for 3 months? Yeah, well, let's swap these out. Okay. And it was on, it was like the old NWA meeting where that would be all the promoters there. And then there would be Vince McMahon Sr. He would be in there too. And then sometimes Vern Gagne would be in there. So, but that's just wrestling.
But I love this. You said, I've taught wrestling for over 20 years. Of course, that's at the time you wrote this book.
Yeah.
The body, the gear, the gimmick, the promo, the moves, that's the easy part.
Yeah.
The psychology is the hard part.
Right. And usually guys don't ever get it. The stars don't get it. But
Rip, can you learn that without working in front of people?
Yes. All the guys I had 70 guys that I got signed that weren't on contract with WWE. That's like the JTG's got about 10 years out of it. That's like Santino. He's still around. That was like, what did I call the Sheik? Anyway, there's a bunch of guys, Serena Deeb, the Spirit Squad guys, Nick Nemeth and stuff. I would just teach goddamn fucking wrestling was all I would do. And when I would have matches, I would just have them against each other. I would just put the thing up, right?
Right.
This is who's working. So now, and at the time they didn't have the phones. They had the flip phones or whatever, right? But I knew they was going to change it some way. If anybody I'd put up a list, and then we'd do more drills for 2 hours. Then I'd send the first guy to the ring, and then I'd send somebody else because the other guys have been planning what they're going to do, right? After about 6 times of doing this, they realized they couldn't. I would not let them. I'd tell them to switch. You know what I mean? Somebody else's music would play, and then somebody else would come out. And they're going, "Holy fuck!" Pretty soon they started laughing. I was forcing them to get good. Mm-hmm. Forcing them to fucking go on the goddamn fucking fly. Then what happened when they get pulled up to the big boys, they didn't know how to do it.
Yeah, you say in your book, you got to have someone pushing you to be the best you can be.
Yes.
You can't mentally do it on your own. Coaches make you the best you can be and keep working.
And would I cuss? Yes. Would I call them girls' name in the book? Yes. And I'm trying to get them fucking jobs. And it worked. Am I the bad guy? Yes, I am, until you get signed and all of a sudden you're happier than shit. I remember JTG used to work at the gym as a babysitter when he come in from New York City, and he was like 18 years old. And he was with them over 8 years. And he said when they called him, he said he knew he shouldn't have answered that. Made the mistake of picking up, and they fired him.
Well, there's guys out there now that are running small little areas. You know, Bo James is running Tennessee, and now he's opened up in Alabama. The James Beard's down running Texas, and you know, there's a couple of spots here and there where guys. Do you think that now that the WWE is not, or they're cutting back on their house shows, is that going to open things up for guys to work smaller areas again?
There's two ways of looking at it.
Okay.
Okay, one way is if you're not on TV, you're nothing. I'm going to save my money until I can go to WrestleMania. I want to see the guys that are on TV that I know are projected as stars. I don't know who these other guys are. It's just how you look at it. And on my first book and my second book, I didn't write 1 second of that. Caleb Hall did, the guy I had in class. And then he added 40 more or 80 more pages, whatever, and made the second one. So all he did was he went through all my tweets through the fucking years, and then he categorized them.
Yeah.
Then he said, hey, I made a book for you. And I said, well, hell, whatever it is, everything's fine, but you spelled my name wrong. So that's not a way to start. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, do you think that we could ever get back where we were?
As Corny would say, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, right?
Right.
But then again, when I watched the fucking first Rocky movie, right? I know it's not real. I know it's a movie, and I'm getting goosebumps now and on my forearms because I remember I'm standing and yelling for Rocky to make the fucking comeback. And I know it's a goddamn movie.
That's right.
So we can suspend the disbelief or whatever the big sentence is like that if you're any good. It's like all these other matches are phony, but I'll make you believe mine's fucking real because I'm going to sell as real. We're not going to have, nothing's going to be smooth. Smooth means it's fucking phony. Everything's a struggle. You might take 5 minutes to get a fucking hold finally that fucking works. The slam is not going to be perfect. The backdrop's off to the side because like a football team, I know what you do offensively and defensively and vice versa. So I know you're going to be I know you're going to hit that arm drag. No, I'm going to drop toe hold you. Then you're going to stagger around. I'm going to hit the arm drag. I'm not going to do like they do today. Hit you with a tackle and immediately turn your back and hit the ropes because you got to do your high spot in.
Yeah. There's going to be there's going to be snaps over the quarterback's head. There's going to be fumbles.
Yes.
They're going to be kickers are going to miss the field goal, you know.
Yes. And I want the home team to get the shit beat out of them. You wrestling in your hometown, I give you nothing. Holy shit, I'm buried. No, the next time, before they thought it was phony and you was going to win. Now you're going to fucking sell and get the shit beat out of you. But at the end, you're going to fucking win. And now you're a fucking god in your hometown, even though you've played no sports in high school.
Yeah, it's a contest, right?
Yes, it's a fucking contest. And every fucking contest, look at the goddamn World Series or whatever. And then sometimes the home team gets its ass beat, and sometimes they win just their home games. But you never know. And in every sport, they've been ringers in fucking the boxing wasn't real. They had the goddamn 8 men out with fucking Major League Baseball. They had the basketball point shaving with the goddamn University of Kentucky and Adolph Rupp. Then they had all the football gimmicks. Anything that's betting or not betting, but hell, it goes back to Abe Attell in the fucking 20s doing that fucking shit.
Right. Well, I'm sure there's like foundational things. So when you're training somebody, you're starting to teach them psychology. What's the first couple of things they got to do or know?
Wait a minute. I got everybody always, they got to fucking text me. I don't give a shit what you fucking say. who it is, leave me a fucking alone. Leave me a fucking alone. You're interrupting my goddamn fucking show. I don't give a fuck about the shit. I don't watch. Oh, everybody wants to help me. I don't need your fucking help. Now, are you there or not?
I'm
Can you hear
here.
me?
Yep, I can hear
Okay,
you.
now
Yep.
you're back. Okay.
Yeah.
And
We're
now I was on the fucking roll and shit. I just want to be fucking left alone when I'm doing. I've done these 4 or how many in the last how many fucking days? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
And you know how fucking stressful that is, and each one's different.
Right.
And I play different characters in each one and stuff. So, anyway,
So you're training somebody and you're starting to teach them psychology. What's the first couple of things you want them to learn?
I'm trained. What I'm doing is I'm drilling them. Okay. I'm not telling them why I'm doing it.
Right. But what are you drilling them on? Everything
in fucking wrestling. Punching, selling, registering, heat on each goddamn body part, dominating a spot with each body part. Keep going back to the body part, but don't do it the same way because I'd be a fucking idiot. Yeah, if I'm going to turn into a Ricky Steamboat arm drag 3 fucking times in a row, drop toe hold me or something. Get me all fucking balanced, spin me around and give me a fucking wing over.
How long does it take somebody to figure that out?
No, I've never seen anybody besides me figure it out. I never have. And I was never trained. One thing, I didn't have any, when you haven't been trained, you don't have any ideas that's shoved down your throat to begin with, right?
Right.
I would say, oh, that didn't work. That should have been better than that. It's like I watched that Steiner kid, whatever his name is, punching his fucking arm how many times in a goddamn row? And WWE is, and I've always hated him since day one. Well, it's like fucking Maven exposing the business on everything. That fucking, once they started that tough enough shit, they started exposing the business. And to me, I wanted to fucking puke, die, all of the above. And they still keep doing that, keep coming up with new shit. They're calling it something else, but they're always, we want to get the casual fan. Now they're having, how many NBA players are going, Tom Brady's going to have a wrestling match, right?
Right.
And then the fucking, the big center on, I'm trying to think. Anyway, all these wrestlers are different things, or different guys. And the wrestlers ain't worth a shit. And so these motherfuckers who are legitimate athletes, now all of a sudden they're supposed to learn how to, so they're going, in other words, they're going to memorize a fucking scripted goddamn match. Fuck you, motherfucker.
Right.
Yeah, okay. The so-called pros look like fucking shit because it's goddamn scripted. Now you got a football player trying to be a baby face or whatever it is. And that's not, all of a sudden he's done this for, he's worked 8 weeks to do this. Well, great. Awesome. I'm going to play in the fucking Super Bowl, but I never played fucking quarterback before, right? In 8 weeks. So you're going to sharpen me up.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So I hate all these motherfuckers. Am I mad all the time? Yeah, because my business has been destroyed. It was never fucking broken.
I could tell when Brian Blair and Ron Hutchinson told you were getting the award. I could tell you were moved by it. What does that mean to you?
Well, my peers chose me.
They did.
Yeah, and that's like Ron, sensational, intelligent mass thunderbolt.
Yeah.
He's got his book out, and I could imitate him perfectly. We'd ride, make towns together. Like when he first got his license for Emile Dupre, he was like 24 or 20, something like that, but he ran into the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't put it over. I just thought he was ribbing me. And I told Emile, he says, oh no, Ron's blind. He can't see. Because he would have his mask on, but he would have his glasses on with the mask on because he couldn't fucking see. Not like Stan Hansen, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He was fucking blind. But anyway.
Well, that's coming up in Las Vegas at the Cauliflower Alley convention, where you're going to get the Trainers Award, and you're going to have to get up in front of everybody and thank them and all of that. And so That'll be good. I wish I could be there. I'm not going to be able to be there, but I wish I could. I'm happy for you.
Well, it's gonna be fun.
I mean, I go back to the days of the ICW and the Phil Golden and all that. So I know how long you and how much you've put into it and what it means to you and all, which is why I wanted to talk with you today.
But it's just like
I appreciate the fact that you're emotional about it because it's important. It's important to you.
Yeah, if I could have $10 million right now, but I had to work a regular job or whatever, and all I wanted to do was be a wrestler, but I got to do everything I fucking wanted, even though I'm all fucked up now, and I still, I'm jealous of any young guy, especially if they're fat, and I'm thinking, you lazy fucking motherfucker. You lazy motherfucker. You ain't got enough discipline to go on a fucking diet, make yourself fucking train, chase fucking greatness and say, hey, look, I'm here. I want in. Help me. I'll work my fucking ass off. And what usually gets in, oh, well, we got to have a first and second. Oh, a third generation wrestler too. And it's okay for them. See, I don't like that shit. But the whole world operates that way anyway, and I realize that. But anyway, I start talking shit. I get mad about stuff, so I'm trying not to get mad about stuff.
So if guys want you to train them, what do they need to do? How do they get in touch with you?
Well, I'm not going to train nobody no more. I'm too old.
You're not.
No,
okay.
I help Sin Bodie on Tuesday nights in Future Stars of Wrestling with Joe DeFalco. Sin's head coach. I'm there. And I'm just there. I'm an assistant coach. Everything he says, he's the head coach. He'll ask me my opinion on something, and I'll give it to him. And that's it. I know my role, but I don't want to be responsible for somebody. See, before I got hurt, I would be in there in the fucking ring was what I would be doing, or I would be up at the top of the building. And I would have somebody else teach the class that I trusted because I needed to watch. The boys were wanting to hit on the fucking girls and the girls were giggling with the fucking guys. And I was teaching them together. So I would be yelling and cussing and make them do stuff because, no, you fucking whores. That's all you are, you know. Oh, yeah, I called all the time. So the first time I got fired. But anyway, I'm passionate about the wrestling business, but I got to do what I wanted. And I'm the most blessed guy in the world to live my fucking dream.
Yeah.
And starting out as the worst in the world. I tell everybody, they said, hey, don't matter. No matter how bad you are, I was worse than you when you are when I started. But you can get better, but that's all up to you.
That's true.
You can start your diet tomorrow. You can start doing your free squats and lunges and all this shit. Even if you don't go to the goddamn gym, you can do body weight exercises. You can do all this shit and then try and always get with the veterans and pick their goddamn fucking brain. Because if a veteran wants to bury you to the promotion out of jealousy a lot of times, because here's this young, muscular, good-looking kid, and the veteran is older, and they've seen his act for how many goddamn years, then all he's got to do is tell the promoter, no, he's got a bad attitude. Then all of a sudden, everybody's think you've got a bad attitude, but you don't, because, hey, this is a thing where you're trying to hold on for dear life to stay in the business, right?
Yes.
Most of the guys in the wrestling business, they only know one trade, and that was pro wrestling. So I ain't mad at nobody, but this is a very, very, very tough business. And
you probably know when somebody comes in, you probably know they can do it. You just don't know if they will do it.
Yeah, and I want to sit back and watch their goddamn body language. So, but that's like any sport, any coach watching Robert Redford in The Natural, right?
Right.
You just don't know. I just know I love this shit. I've done more than ever I thought I was. and it was never about the motherfucking money.
Right. It was
Never.
just necessary.
Yeah. I had to eat something. I'd find a way to eat some way. Right now, I got my Dollar Tree shit. I got another day's worth for Dollar Tree, and I ain't. And if you're some, and then you got guys making millions and millions of dollars now, and they're not worth a shit. But that doesn't matter. When I was growing up, this is when everybody in every sport, before the Andy Messersmith decision, there was no free agency. The baseball players, the basketball players, the football players, they'd usually use their name, and they'd be a car salesman, or they was some kind of salesman where having their name would meant something. But everybody had to get a job after the season was over, because you still had bills to pay. You had a family. Yep. And you had no say if somebody traded you. Well, I got these 4 kids in school. They don't give a shit. And in wrestling, if you got hurt, about 1 or 2, they would keep you around. Then they just get rid of you. They had to bring somebody in to take your place. But I knew the rules. That's what it was coming in.
Right.
So you learn not to hurt anybody, not to do anything dangerous. When you're on a goddamn spot show, you get in, get out. I remember working matches with Chris Benoit. We'd go 30 minutes and not break a bead of fucking sweat. He'd come in. I'm a professional. He'd go like that. Not a bead of sweat on me. I said, yeah, but the promoters, they'll want you to work harder, because a lot of the promoters weren't the fucking boys. You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's some stuff's good, some stuff's bad, but you learn how to survive on your own.
I'm glad you brought that up. Who did you enjoy working with the most?
I don't know the most, because there was a different situation with everything.
Yeah, sure. But I mean, who did you think was really good?
Brad Armstrong was the best guy I ever worked in the ring for a first match. He did everything you're supposed to do, and I'm laughing. And he won't say a word because he knows he's supposed to shut the fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
So we would have stayed in tie. We didn't really get a tie up. We're still tying up for 5 minutes, and we've got nothing in. There was one bump in the whole fucking match, and I took a Russian leg sweep, a float over. I did one leapfrog bump, I did a reverse leapfrog, and I tried it again at the end after I started to fucking come back and stopped him. And he stopped on the fucking dime, give me the Russian leg sweep with the fucking float over, and that was it. 1, 2, 3. He said, I never done anything like that before. I said, you had fun, didn't you? He said, yeah. But I always thought he was the best guy first time in. You know what I mean? And what's funny, a lot of the guys, they're big stars, and they're not worth a fuck.
You mentioned Adrian. Did you like working with him?
Oh, I love working with goddamn Adrian. Everyone was different. We never had no scripted bullshit. We just went out there and we played off each other.
And you worked with him for like how long?
26 weeks in a row.
26 weeks in a row in that little Alabama territory.
Yeah, So I'm not mad at nobody. I enjoyed working my time with him and everything.
Yeah. Well, listen, man, thanks for your time today. Congratulations on the award from the Cauliflower Alley. I'm proud of you, and I'm proud that you got it. You still do your show on Fridays?
I do every Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time, unless I got something else going. So I'll be Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time here
on YouTube, right?
This week, and then on Saturdays I do the Pain Lair with Max Payne.
Oh yeah, that's a new one.
Yeah, then I did Monty and the Pharaohs. I've been on there 4 times.
Yeah.
So, and then I did this one today. So
yeah,
that was the 4th one in 5 days or something like that. I just know I'm fucking going 100 miles an hour and thinking too much.
Well, listen, man, I appreciate you taking the time, and I want you to come back, and we got a lot of things we can talk about, but congratulations on the award. It's well-deserved, and I'm proud for you.
Well, when I look at it, I say, well, I got to give it to somebody living, so I'm alive.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, thanks for having me on, Tony. Have a good day, and then we'll talk, all right?
Wowee, what a conversation. The Hustler, Rip Rogers, right here on the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel History Show. I can't wait for Rip to come back. I got a whole bunch more things I want for him, and we will get him back on here after he's been out to Las Vegas and the Cauliflower Alley Club reunion, the 60th anniversary of the Cauliflower Alley. Such a great organization, doing such great things for the wrestlers in the community that need their help. And I hope you are becoming a member or are a member. And if you get out there, tell everybody I said hi. And it should be a great, great event. All right, that's our show this week. And thank you to Paige Sutherland for coming by and being with us. Thank you for the great Dan Murphy for coming by and being with us. And thank you for the stupendous, amazing, incredible Hustler, Rip Rogers, for coming by and being on the show today. Don't forget, Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel, send out the Daily Chronicle, the only Territory era newsletter that comes out every single morning at 5 a.m. Central, 6 a.m. Eastern. We put out a newsletter every single day, and we got some great features in there, and it's absolutely free. All you got to do is sign up, give us your email address. You have access to all of our content on the site for free subscribers. If you'd like to support my history work, and you'd like to become a premium subscriber, it's $5 a month and $50 a year if you want to save $10. And you get access to our premium features like Tracking the World Champions, The Evolution of Pro Wrestling, Family Tradition, which is my series about the incredible families of the Territory era, and a whole lot more. $5 a month, $50 a year, and you become a premium member of the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel. Thanks for being here. Next week, Tim Deals, my good friend, will be back here. We'll be going back to the Tennessee Territory. We got such great response from our first 6 months of 1976 in Tennessee. We're going to be doing that again. We're going to wrap up the year in the second half of 76, and the explosion of the UWA and the beginnings of the seeds that are planted for the Jarrett Goulas split, and a whole lot more as we get deep into 1976 in the territory of Tennessee. Also, Randy Hales, who was very involved in Jarrett Promotions and Memphis Wrestling. He was a commentator on WMC for the show. He was the ring announcer. He was a commentator out at the Mid-South Coliseum. He traveled. He booked. He was the owner of Power Pro Wrestling after the Memphis promotion had closed down. And he is a wonderful, wonderful guy. He has me on his show, Talking Memphis Wrestling, a lot of Tuesday nights. I'm over there with that incredible crew of friends. And Randy's going to be here, and we're going to spend a little bit talking about him. And we'll have a whole lot more on the show coming up here next week. Thanks, everybody, for joining. I hope you'll also check me out on Stories with Briscoe and Bradshaw. Episode 8 of the history of Texas wrestling is coming out this week. And that will be a jam-packed wrestling history episode for you right there on Stories of Briscoe and Bradshaw. I'll see you back here next week on the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel History Show. And remember, if you want better neighbors, be a better neighbor. Thank you, everybody. So long. This is Tony Richards saying bye-bye from the Richards Ranch at the Bluegrass State.
Thanks for tuning in to the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel Podcast. Tune in for another great episode next week, interviewing wrestlers, referees, and media personalities that have made the sport of professional wrestling great. We'll release a new episode soon. Don't you dare miss it.